this. Yes, welcome back, friends. And there we are going to go through the plan and where are we with respect to overall thing. That's very important thing, as you people know, that we need to always keep an eye on overall journey. Where do we start and where are we today? And particularly on Saturdays, that becomes more important because, as I told you, you have a very lovely boss in your office, and that lovely boss makes you forget everything. So it's good, my responsibility to bring you back into the game on every Saturday and then take it ahead. So here we go. That's what was overall journey, project definition, progressive elaboration, definition of project management, and all that. Those were the things. We'll just jump through those slides. I'm just deliberately saying jump through because no intention to repeat anything. This was more about the PMP exam and all that thing. Keep all that thing in mind. And yesterday, not yesterday, I think last session I said that one of the way to motivate yourself is to book the exam, because then you will start getting a real pressure. Yeah, this was very important project. So just see that the bottom part of it, you can see there is something called as progressive elaboration. Progressive elaboration is all about making the plan in pieces. It does not mean that you should not have a plan about the future. It is only saying the depth of the plan for the future should not be same as depth of the plan which are going to do tomorrow. So basically you need to have a detailed plan for the near future, while your plans for the distant future should be at a shallow level. If you don't do that, it becomes really expensive deal for you, and that's where progressive elaboration as a word has come in there. And very important diagram, where does the portfolio, programs and projects lie. Most important thing, remember, the portfolios are created. The portfolio manager as a person, if you look at him as an individual, then portfolio managers are deployed, employed for achieving the strategic objective of the organization, while programs are there who are going to obtain the benefit by linking appropriate things. Remember, the programs under portfolio may not have any relation between them, but projects under the program will have relation. Let me repeat, the programs under the portfolio may not be related to each other, but projects under the program will be related to each other in terms of someone's output will be linked as an input and so on and so forth. So very important, the programs are there for getting the benefits, while the project, very important thing, they have been told what the service result or product expected, and they work hard to achieve that particular thing. More to do the recap, and that's why I'm jumping through those slides. 6 parameters you need to balance to be a successful project manager, including the risk. Remember, risk is also important parameter to be balanced. Saying that I don't want to take any risk, not a great style. Saying that I'm ready to take all the risk, not really a great thing. You need to take a balancing view. Certain risk you need to take it, certain risk you should not take it. And common reasons for the project and a detailed thing on this. So this was our, thing. I think we deserve to jump through the slides on Agile as well. What do you say, friends? Should we? So let's jump through those slides. As I told you, we are jumping through them. It's not that we are going to repeat everything. It is just to ensure that that we are because it's a Saturday, and on Saturdays it's good to remember it. कहाँ गया मेरा वो PPT? I think I have opened it somewhere. More concept wala didn't I open? So let me open that PPT. Session activity more concept वाला खुला था. Okay, let me double click. Anyway, it will not open twice. Yes, it wasn't open. So there I go and directly hit to the Agile. And this was Agile thing. A quick recap, we spent almost a complete day, which was around 4 hours there. The VUCA world, the volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. things. Then those type of the project life cycles, productive and the agile are the extreme one. Where productive everything is linear, agile is you are deciding the goals as you walk. You are actually flexible enough to accommodate the thing, and that is done through something called as a combination of product backlog, which is a complete long wish list, but below that you have a sprint backlog, which is a short term thing, degree of change and so on. So for example, productive, the requirements are also frozen in the beginning, delivery is done only in the end. In agile, the requirements are taken in every sprint, and the delivery is done at the end of every sprint. And in between, lies incremental and iterative. In incremental, the deliveries are seen periodically, the requirements are not changed. In iterative, the deliveries are done, the requirements are captured in between, but the delivery is done only in the end. The different type of thing, very important thing called as the prototype and refinement. This is the key of iterative life cycle. They don't go very linear here. They said once the initial requirements are captured, they will keep on refining them through the prototype. Show it to the customer. Don't try to build the whole thing and then say that this is what I have built. Don't do that. Let the prototyping be there to go ahead and freeze the design. Once the design is frozen, then get into the a cycle of building and testing hand in hand. Keep on refining the product while you build it, do the testing. And once it is done, finally, the delivery. That's the fundamental difference between productive and iterative life cycles. The core values, the 12 principles, and several practices, most important being the Scrum one. Core values of Agile, 12 principles there. So, got this, and this is there. The top product vision and product roadmap. Below that, you have multiple releases. The releases are broken into multiple iterations, and each iteration has multiple user stories or the features which are there. So multiple features are built there. Remember, up to this point, you will have to do a long-term plan only, which is like a predictive life cycle. Everything below iteration will be done in the agile way there. Where should you go ahead and use the adaptive life cycle? Where the uncertainty of the requirement and technical, one of them should be at least something established. Everything is unestablished. Technology wise, you are struggling. The requirements are also changing very fast. Not a brilliant idea to go ahead and do that, and it could lead into the chaos there. When everything is simple, your requirements are fairly frozen, your technology is extremely established. The better idea is to, one is, I will put him.
Uh, yes, yes, Sanjay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was late.
No, never mind. I will just put, thanks. So now, so I was saying, when your requirements are frozen, your technology is extremely established there. It's a good time to, use adaptive, the productive life cycle, which means traditional way. The reason being very simple, that you will be able to save the cost. Remember, if you get an opportunity to plan something in the future, your cost reduces. That's the thing which is there. If you are able to plan few things about the future, your cost will reduce, because you can plan the resources, you can plan the the training for the staff. Rather than taking some expensive resources, you would probably go ahead and recruit certain freshers and train them. Obviously it will save the cost, but for that you should have an opportunity to see into the future, and see into the future is possible in productive, not in adaptive. And that's where, if your requirements are fairly certain, your technology is fairly established, go with productive life cycle. Remember, don't say that everywhere I should go ahead and switch to agile. Not necessary. In certain situations, just to save the cost, you might as well decide to do productive life cycle, or the waterfall is there. Where does the whole thing fit from the lean? Then below that, a big umbrella called as agile and agile, so many methods. And this was where we have spent good amount of time. Remember, product owner is going to capture the requirement, prioritize it. The team is going to decide what they want to do it in the given thing. They will negotiate with the product owner for that and then finally decide. No one has a right to dictate terms on to the team saying that you must take so much of a load. No, he can give the priority. You need to decide as a team which part you want to take, how much you want to actually take onto the plate there. And in this transition, there is something called as a backlog, refinement or backlog grooming, which means, the requirements which are captured in the product backlog could be at a shallow level, or maybe they could be in the wording which the product owner understands, because he's from the business, friends. He's not a technical guy. But that level of clarity, that level of information is not good for the team. So when the bank staff told the product owner, saying that we want bank reconciliation report, that was damn clear for product owner, because this guy was a branch manager for 15 years and then moved into as a product owner. So bank reconciliation report for him was very clear. But this guy telling it to the team saying that we want to develop bank reconciliation, not necessarily team will understand. And that is called as backlog grooming. So you need to do backlog grooming, where you go ahead and say, what do you want these things, this report, these fields, all that detailed thing is called as backlog grooming. End of the thing is very important: sprint review and sprint retrospective. So those are the things which are being done there. Daily scrum meetings are happening, burn down, burnout chart, and so on. Implementing agile, the servant leader follows the right sequence. He is concentrating on purpose first, then people, and then process. Directly jumping into the process, ignoring the purpose and people will take you into the wrong direction there. You may not be able to achieve the things. So servant leader follows that particular aspect. Agile roles, T type of people and all that. So as I told you, it was more to repeat: minimum viable product, DOD and DOR, agile metrics. Kuldeep, was that you who said you have gone through
यस
agile?
सर, आई साइड।
हाँ, वो याद आ रहा है, वो these all
हाँ,
these.
मालूम है
Yeah,
सर।
yeah, yeah. So good. And hopefully anyone else did attempted to go through agile practice guide.
Yeah,
Half the
I did.
half the
Yeah, I
way.
did.
Yeah, so याद आ रहा है राज?
Yeah.
Yeah, these things are there. Yes, Maria, is that you said so? You too?
Yes. Yeah.
So these are all the things which are. So are you realizing, whatever is given here is nothing new. It is all from the same book there. Burn down charts and so on. So basically, this was, the whole thing called as an adaptive, which we have seen that particular day. And now coming back to the, product and project life cycle. The product life cycle is much bigger and all that. That's what. And project selection, IRR, NPV, payback, and some sample questions we tried. Remember, friends, whenever there is IRR, that's the topmost priority. If there are other confusing numbers there, the first thing we'll take is a IRR. That you should go with that, because that calculates, it is back calculation considering all the factors there. If IRRs are same, then only you should go. IRR being negative means you are going to lose the money in that project. So that's the basic first thing. Then comes NPV, payback, and so on and so forth. So NPV negative means project is going to make loss for you. NPV, if it is positive, then the one which is having higher NPV is the better project. So those are the all aspects there. 10 knowledge areas starting with the integration and ending with the stakeholder, and the 5 process groups starting with initiation and finally the closing. That we have seen it. And 6 tools group. Anyone wish to remember them? The 6 groups of the tools.
हाउ व्हेन ये वाला सर।
नहीं, ग्रुप्स ऑफ द टूल्स 725 सबके पास खुला है ये Pimbok. Hopefully, if it is not, please open it very quickly, because
Open man.
from this point onward, you need to always be every now and then jumping
Oh,
into
okay. Data
720.
gatherings,
Okay, got it.
Yes, data gathering, then
analysis,
correct,
representation techniques, decision-making techniques, communication skills, and
and info.
interpersonal and team
So
skills.
basically,
Yeah.
they are Raj. They are not tools and technique. They are groups of tools and technique. Correct.
Okay.
Under data gathering, you have multiple tools. For example, interview, brainstorming. These are data gathering tools. These are the groups actually. Under that groups, there are several of them. Correct. And each of that tool is used for multiple processes. And that's what they have shown on the page 725. If you scroll down, you'll find there are 6 tables, data gathering tools, tables, data representation tools, table. So in that table, you will find out where all that particular thing is used. The seventh table below that, did you reach there? Anyone? Below interpersonal and team skill, there is one more table there.
Can you repeat the page number, please?
725 PDF, Swati. 725. I'm not deliberately opening because I want you to be familiar with the book,
What's that again?
Yeah, so Raj, I was saying that, there are 6 tables below. First
Yes.
is, which is data gathering, data,
Yes.
analysis. Now, after the 6th table, there would be a 7th table below. What's the title?
Ungroup
Below,
tools.
below interpersonal and team skills वाला table, उसके नीचे Raj.
Ungroup tools and techniques.
Ungroup tools and techniques. Did you notice that? Ungroup tools and techniques. There are few things which are extremely, they don't fall under data gathering, data analysis, data representation. They are ungrouped. For example, I think the first one there is advertisement. Is that right, Raj?
Yeah. Advertising. Yeah.
Advertisement actually, it's an ungroup. You cannot call it as a data gathering, data analysis, decision making. So advertisement. So there are, few of them which are ungrouped there as well. This is more like a group. You need to remember the groups, no, but just to understand the structure so that you can browse through them very quickly. These particular tables, Raj, will be very useful for you to find where which tool is used. As I told you, my Excel spreadsheet, tool will also help you to do that. That's not a, but that's an additional thing. Basically book wise, you can search it here. So that was, the groups, which is what we, spoke on 11th. You might come back to my screen now. So 11th of May, I think, which was, the 2 weeks before. Okay. Then came 17th, which is the last Saturday. We had a process overview for all 49. And that's where, I thanked Raj and Raj thanked me about, the structure. That was that whole thing we did using the structure. Correct, Raj?
Yeah, correct.
So that's what we did. We have understood where are those 14 at a broad level, not deeper. Deeper we are going later. And then we started with, those two type of documents called as business case and benefit management plan, which are under a broader thing called as the business documents, because those documents are created before project is created. The very reason why a project is created is that, and that's where it's very important to get that particular thing, business case and benefit management plan. Then we have seen EF and OPA, enterprise environmental factors, which are beyond your control, but they are going to impact your project. And the vice project manager is said to be one who does not blame the EF. He actually goes ahead and tries to use the EF in his interest. If not, if certain EFs are going to trouble you, he does something because of which that trouble will be reduced. So EF is not something to grumble about. It is note that and take your actions accordingly, because that is beyond your control. OPAs, on the other hand, are created by someone. So if I were to use a very loose, phrases here, is that I would say EFs are like act of God, while OPAs are act of man. Are you getting this point, Pawan? EF are like act of God. No one created it. It got created in the thing. OPAs are act of man. Are you getting that, Swati?
Yeah.
Basically, OPA, I mean, someone organization has a process, organization has the tools for, that's what is there. But what it is trying to say, Swati, is that you need to ensure that note them, whichever out of that are in your favor, use them, whichever are out of your control, go ahead and try to reduce the impact of it. But grumbling about EAF or OPA is not a sign of a good project manager. Role of the PM, power of PM, and all that thing, and then some questions. That was, the 17th. 18th was, on the integration. So here also we spent good amount of time and understood integration at a broad level. And in the second half, we understood that, Excel tool, which was helping you to do the crisscross type of, study there. That was there. And some sample questions on the integration, they were a little tricky. And I think some of you might have got scared when we tried those questions, particularly from the love PMP. But don't, don't lose your heart, friends. You have not read that book at all, first thing. And one of the thing which comes only is with the time. Are you getting my point? I mean, when you will go ahead and solve more and more questions, your eyesight will get set onto that, so that you would be able to read through the important phrases, important words from the question as well as and scenario, and your ability to relate it will be faster. So that was there. Scheduling concept, we are going to start with the scope today. So any questions on this? So today 24th, any questions, friends, before I go ahead and start showing you this animation which I have not done so far? This slide is familiar.
Yeah.
Yes.
The bird's eye view. What I have done is that I have done some animation here. So the animation goes like this. It says that, what does it mean? Did you notice something flashing there? So
Phases, maybe.
yeah,
Okay, I think the outcome.
correct. So outcome of the develop project charter is what it is trying to say, but it is not that, it is not going to show you all the outcomes. It is going to tell you major things and how they are related. Okay. Then comes, that becomes an input for collect requirement. Because while collecting requirement, to understand what is the overall border of my project, keeping project charter is handy. These collect requirement will create something called as a requirement documentation that becomes an input for defining the scope. Define scope will create the project scope statement, which will become an input for create WBS, which is work breakdown structure. This is the scope for today. So you may not have heard those words, but that's how it happens. Remember, basic in the charter at a broad level, it is only saying that we want to implement a customer relationship management system in next 6 months of span. We are estimating around 40 lakhs INR. That's what is at a project charter. Now, that's not good enough as a requirement. Remember, implementing the customer relationship management system is at a broad, it's sort of a wish list, it's sort of a big dream there. Now, that big dream need to be broken into requirement. So I want, the campaign functionality, I want the customer master functionality, I want the cold calling functionality, I want that, the sales functionality. Kya kya chahiye? All those things will have to be taken there, and that's what is done in the collect requirement, and you create requirement documentation. Is that clear so far? Requirement documentation, correct? Are you getting the difference between project charter and requirement documentation?
Sanjay,
Yes.
I mean, I can relate, but what's with these arrows? Like, how are these connected to outputs, inputs?
Basically, project charter is an output of develop project charter, correct, Raj?
Yes, yes. That's
And
correct.
by
Yeah.
saying that arrow I am collecting it to, so for collect requirement, project charter is an input, correct?
Yeah, but okay, yeah.
Okay. Now, what I am trying to say, Raj, here is that there are so many several inputs as well. Why I am specifically saying, see, requirements is an elaboration. Charter is at a broad level, correct?
Yeah.
Yes. Charter is not a replacement of requirements. Is that correct, Raj?
Yes.
Charter is at a broad level. So Raj is saying that I wish to go ahead and clear PMP exam in next 3 months of span, and maybe even budget there. Here the question is no related to cost. You know the cost very well. Okay. So let's say cost you are also expressing, Raj, saying that I am ready to spend around 4 hours every day for next 3 months. That's the level of requirements and all that thing. Raj is at a charter level, correct?
Yes.
Now, in collect requirement, you can't be at that level. You'll have to say that I will have to read PMBOK so many times. I'll have to take low PMP. Who detailing requirements are detailed. Charter may it's at a broad level, correct?
Yeah, Sanjay. I mean, I get everything, but the thing is, except with these arrows, I mean, I see that you try to make something like there is a lot of efforts went from your end with these arrows, but I want to catch the same thing that you are trying to portray here.
Yes, yes. Okay. So now coming back to then Raj, then what will happen? The requirements will be used to put a border around it and then the come up with the scope. The one of the principal Raj they say is that not, when requirements are there, so many people will tell so many requirements. They don't become part of the scope. Something out of that will become part of the scope, something might remain outside the scope. Because that's the area where technology, the constraint, the budgetary things, and all that thing come into the picture. So defining, taking set of requirements and deciding what are in scope and out scope is called as define scope. That's the next process. The define scope will create something called as the project scope statement. If I click, you will realize, see, collect requirement. When I click, requirement documentation is there. The second one called as requirement traceability matrix. Did you notice that, friends? Yes. Now I am
Yes.
going back.
Yes.
Now look at it here. If I click on to define scope, you'll find project scope statement is an output. The requirements were there, but now they have taken only out of these, so many are in scope. These are kept outside the scope. Maybe because they are kept for the second phase, maybe because you can't finish it right now. So all those reasons they are called as defined scope. So project scope statement. As I was saying, when I gave you the overall journey, I said that you can't go ahead and make 10 copies of the scope and give it to all team member and say, just start working. You need to break it into the smaller pieces so that people are able to work onto that. And doing so is called as create WBS. So if you look at WBS, you'll find output called as a scope baseline coming up there. Now, I will be explaining this to you. But this is, today's chapter is in fact scope. But this is at a broad level, saying that these are the inputs. So did you notice charter becomes little more elaborated in the requirements, there is a border put around that, and that becomes the scope is then broken down into the work packages. That's called as create WBS. Is that making sense, friends?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I do.
Now going to the
Yes. Yes.
next one here is scope baseline is created here. Then comes, this becomes an input for executor called as direct and manage project work.
So scope baseline is basically a firm version of what is in the scope. What will be in the scope?
Scope baseline has 5 things there, Kuldeep. There are 5 things. Obviously, you are right. The scope part of it is there. But in addition to that, it has a WBS, work breakdown structure. It has something called as WBS dictionary. So we'll go through that, little detail. Was that Kuldeep who was asking that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Kuldeep. So scope baseline is a composite thing. ये तीन में जो कुछ भी whatever you have done, they are combined together. It's called as a scope baseline. And why are you creating scope baseline? Because you are in an attempt to make a formula called as PP is equal to 9 plus 1 plus 3. याद है कुलदीप?
Sir, plus N.
हाँ, and plus n. ये
Plus.
3 में से एक scope baseline है. Correct? Yes, is
Yes,
that
sir.
making sense? And remember, we are not going to say about schedule baseline all that because the current animation is about the deliverable journey. So scope baseline goes to the executor, the people who are going to do the thing. What they do into that, see, schedule baseline is created by this guy using the same thing, goes here. Cost baseline comes and that also is used. All these, he takes the project plan as an input. So it has 3 baselines which are coming for you to do the execution. And he ends up creating deliverables. Is that right, friends? You remember I was saying that the different font and highlight given to the direct and manage project work is because that is the process which creates deliverable. Correct, friends?
Yes.
Now deliverables, what is done? They are given to control quality. Why? Why deliverables are given to control quality?
For validation.
Correct. What do you mean by validation? Who does that validation?
The testing team.
The team itself. That's very important.
Yeah.
Are you getting this point?
Yes.
Yes. So then once they validate it, it creates verified deliverable. Did you notice the deliverable now became verified deliverable? Okay. This verified deliverable are then offered to validate scope, which is customer's acceptance. Correct, friends? You remember I was saying the name of this process is slightly confusing. Maria,
Yes. Yes.
Pawan? Yes, Pawan. Sachin, Vishakha. Is that hopefully?
Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah, okay. So validate scope is you are offering these verified deliverers to the customer, which in turn result into accepted deliverable. Remember, verified and accepted. The difference is that verified means your own team has verified it. Accepted means they are accepted by the customer. Deliverables means you have created. Deliverables is what you have created. Verified means you have tested it. Accepted means customer has accepted it. And once that happens, it goes to close project or phase. So that's the way in which where there was a charter. In the charter, it was said that we'll implement CRM system. In the closed project, the CRM system is handed over. This is how it is happening. Project charter is being used, then requirements are collected, broken down into the scope, creating the WBS. All three baselines are created, deliverables are done, they are tested in control quality, shown to the customer, accepted deliverables, and finally handed over. So this is the deliverable related journey, wherever there is a deliverable coming into the picture. So that was, the intention of this animation, when I made that particular thing there. Okay. So
Sanjay, I have a question
yes.
for this project charter. So, do we have a template, a specific that we follow for a project charter?
Uh,
And I mean, how do we actually, if we take an
ah,
example, how we would be doing it?
Now, what they have done, Vishakha, they have given the content of it. As you would have seen, that there was, a slide which was very clearly saying what is there in the charter. So, if you look at these things which are there, um, just a minute. संतोष मी तुम्हाला थोड्या वेळाने कॉल करतो. So coming back to this integration, so the integration your question was what do we do? See, now what PMI does, Vishakha, is that they don't tell you all that, but they have shown you the content. Look at it here. Correct, Vishakha?
Yeah, I mean, the question is, I just want to repeat this. I understood the, importance or how, what is exactly why we are using project charter. But can we take an example, like, or in any of the session, you will be taking an example that this is a template that normally we use or is recommended to be used
That
normally in the
PMI doesn't.
organization.
PMI doesn't recommend
Okay.
any template there. However, there is a site which we are speaking in one of the thing, and that is called as PMI. Sorry, it's called as. See, this is that site, Project Management Docs. If you go to this particular thing, it has all the templates. So we'll see that templates. See here, project initiation. You can see this site.
सर वो ईएफ में हो गया ना, वो सॉरी ओपीएस में हो गया ना, क्योंकि कोई तो
इनफैक्ट ये
template
ओपीए भी
वो
नहीं है.
ओपीए में आ जाएगा.
These are sort of a EF only because they are not part of your organization. Correct, Kuldeep? They are part of.
मैं प्रोजेक्ट चार्टर के बारे में बात कर रहा था.
हाँ, correct. तो नहीं, EF in which sense you are saying? We are speaking about this template. ये template is part
नहीं,
of the
template is
EF.
okay.
हाँ,
Vishaka asked question whether
हाँ,
there is a template for project
correct.
charter. So my thought, the first thought that came to me was that there are OPAs and there
Correct.
might exist some template for that in part of
Correct.
OPA.
Organization will have the OPS there. And in that OPA, they could be there. Correct. Exactly. Which means in the company, they would have their quality management system. And in that, there could be a template which are going to be different. But we didn't solve, Vishaka's query. So let me finish. So initiation, look at it here. Project charter template. Did you saw this, Vishaka?
Yes,
Now,
yes.
if I click onto this, it will even allow you to download. That's the beautiful part of it is that it allows you to download even without, signing with that. See now. So whenever these documents are there and you want to see how does that look in real life, this is the place. So you'll find, look at it here, what it should have: executive summary, it should have business case, objectives, all that. They have given detailed template here, and they have given also description what should be there. This is the only thing which is, available. PMI in its own, they don't go ahead and specify any templates there. Correct, Vishaka?
Got it.
But you can always, refer to this site. It's a good site there. Yes. Anyone else? Any question before we start summarizing or, taking this journey related to the scope? So there I go and switch to this slide back, the fourth one, and I go into this mode. So today we are going to go through this scope related thing there. So it was a, an recap overall. Okay. So going back to the thing, we have done develop project charter, which means the charter was created, develop project plan, that project plan was made, having those so many components there, direct and manage project work. This was integration, I'm saying. Then manage project knowledge. There were two type of knowledges. Kuldeep, you said you read that, so hopefully you remember those two names. Which
Yes,
type
sir.
which are those two? Explicit and tacit. Correct?
Knowledge,
Explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge.
tacit knowledge, right?
Explicit knowledge is, which you can read, write, document,
Something recordable,
record. But tacit knowledge is will come with the experience, beliefs, and all that things.
intangibles.
But for you to do
Tangibles and
success,
intangibles, basically.
correct. But for you to successfully say that I am managing project knowledge, you need to do both. If there is only one, it will be like, you know something, me knowing how to fly the aircraft and me being able to fly an aircraft is a difference, and that is the difference called as tacit. And in the project, you need to ensure both knowledge transfers do happen, not only explicit but also the tacit knowledge transfer. Monitor and control project work is a boss of all the controllers. Is, taking the work performance information from each of these guys, and he is making WPR, work performance reports there. That's what is the thing. Perform integrated change control. All the controllers might go ahead and raise the CR when they realize that the news is not good. Remember, the job of the control process is to compare the actual with the planned. And obviously, when you compare actual with the planned, either there is a good news or there is a bad news. And when there is a bad news, these people will independently raise a CR looking into their own area. The resource manager might say that we need to give more training to the people. Cost manager might come back and say that we need to reduce the cost. Now remember, both of these things cannot go ahead together. If you want to give the training, cost will increase. If you want to, plan the training, the cost will increase. Now, how do we? These both CRs will come and perform integrated change control, where a collective decision will be taken. Either the CR will be accepted, maybe the cost CR was approved, and this CR was rejected. This will then become part of the project plan version 2, and it will run. And that's how this was, the integration. Now, scope. At this point, I'm going to do some explanation about what is there. First one, called as the plan scope management. As I told you, all the processes whose name starts with the plan are strategies. They are not goals. I told you strategies and goal, which means they are answering how are you going to do something. They are not telling you what are you going to do it. So for example, in the scope management plan, which is one of the output there is another output called the requirement management plan. See here, scope management plan and requirement management plan. Now, in scope management plan, you will say that how are you going to collect the requirement? Will you conduct the interview? Will you go ahead and read some old document and document the requirement yourself and get it approved by the customer? What is going to be your approach? That's where, the strategy, approach. How are you going to do everything related to the scope? How are you going to document? Are you going to use any tool for doing that thing? Are you going to, if it comes to the requirement, how are you going to capture the requirement? How are you going to prioritize the requirement? Is that important, friends, to prioritize the requirements?
Yes.
Very important, correct, Swati?
Yes.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
eventually there are always so many requirements, and you necessarily, in the given time and budget constraint, you need to go ahead and take few of them and drop few of them. So the prioritization should be there. Now remember, after you collect the requirement, you can't decide the strategy. How will I prioritize? Are you listen to this very carefully? I am saying that should you first of all decide how are you going to prioritize, or should you go ahead and first of all collect the requirement?
Collect the requirement.
But I mean, you will prioritize it later, correct, Swati? After
Yes.
collecting requirement, you will prioritize. But what should be your approach? Whether we should call them as high, low, medium, or 1, 2, 3, or essential, nice to have, good. ये जो strategy है, that strategy should always come first, Swati, correct?
Okay. Yes.
In the plan scope management, you will not say that which requirements are priority because you have not collected requirements yet, correct, Swati?
Mm-hmm.
But here you will say that in my project, all the requirements after capturing, I will go ahead and mark each one of them as high, low, and medium. That strategy decision is part of the scope management plan. Correct?
Yes.
Then once requirements are done, you will then segregate it into high, low, and medium. Are you getting this, friends? Yes. Once you get into the action, you can't go back and make strategy. Strategy should be known. For example, Swati, when should you decide which tools I am going to use? In the beginning, in the strategy, correct?
Yes.
Implementing that tool will happen when you are going to do something called as a what, when you are creating the baseline. So plan scope management is that process, creating two plans called as a scope management plan and requirement management plan. There are not many tools and techniques. We'll probably run through that process very quickly. Then comes collect requirement. Charter was at a very broad level. It was I always, very often I use this very funny analogy. Remember, don't even take it that exactly it's going to be like that. Just now Vishakha said that, we have seen the template itself was 7-8 pages. So charter cannot be very small thing, but I use an analogy, Vishakha, and I say that charter is a half page document. Now, why do I say half page? Try to understand. What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't have detailed thing. It has at a broad level thing. Charter is a sponsor's thing. This is what is the broad thing we are going to do. This is the timeline and this is the budget. And Mr. or Miss so and so is a project manager. इतना ही चीज होता है. That's the reason for which I call it as half page document. Yes, Kuldeep.
Sir, you just said something requirements management plan, and we know it is there, but why is it hidden from this sheet that we have on our screen?
What do you
We,
mean by requirement hidden?
because we don't see requirement management plan.
No,
And
no, no. It's
after
not a
collecting,
separate process. There is no process called as plan requirement management. There is a process called as plan scope management, which creates two outputs. There is no, see, one
okay, ठीक है
process
sir,
does not create necessarily only one output. It could have multiple, correct?
definitely.
So the process called as plan scope management creates two output. One is scope management plan, one is requirement management plan, correct?
Fine, sir, fine.
So that's the difference between. So why it is not visible here? Because this slide, Kuldeep, is not showing you outputs. This is showing you names of the processes, correct?
All right.
Then comes collect requirement, talk to appropriate users. Here, before that, you have done identify stakeholder. Is that important for you to collect requirement? What's the importance of why I am trying to link this? I am saying you have done identify stakeholder and now you are going to do collect requirement. How is that related?
You'll collect requirements from those stakeholders only.
Are you getting this? What Shishir is saying? Everyone understood this?
Yeah.
किससे बात करना है? Correct? For you to understand किससे बात करना है, you need to do identify stakeholder first. That's what Shishir is saying. Correct, Shishir?
Yes.
So for collect requirement, you should have done this identify stakeholder. At least, the first level of thing. As I told you, Shishir, even last time, you can't do complete identify requirement in the initiation only. They will come up, they will get revealed with time. Correct?
Correct.
During one of the requirement collection, one of the user might say that this particular functionality, as I am explaining, Shishir, should have. But na to Shishir, before you freeze it, go ahead and talk to finance here. वो finance वाला तेरे को ना, he might be able to give you. Did you notice now? You are going back into identify stakeholder. A new stakeholder got added called as the finance department. Do you notice that? Very common, Shishir.
Yes.
So basically, what I am trying to say, identify stakeholder first cut, first implementation will happen before collect required. Not that it will get completed. They will keep on coming later. And that's what they are trying to say. Yes, Kuldeep.
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand, but you have answered my question, sir.
Yes, never. So good. Collect requirement is there. So identify stakeholder going into this one, collect requirement. Having identified all the requirements, you need to go ahead and put a boundary around them. You need to put a boundary around them, saying that which out of all these requirements, which one I am going to take into the project and which one I am going to keep outside. There could be multiple reasons, friends. Now listen to this very carefully. One of the principle of anyone here is playing a role of business analyst in his own area. We have business analyst in this group.
अभी नहीं,
Have-
मेरा previous profile था. I mean, few years
and who is
back.
this?
Shishir.
Shishir. So business analyst. That's what your previous profile. All of you people would be dealing with if you are doing project management, then I'm sure, all of you would be dealing with someone who is like a business analyst, friends. Is that right? Shishir has played that role, but other people, have you dealt with the project business analyst? Yes, Pawan?
Yes,
Niranjan?
Yes.
Yes, very common, isn't it? They are required, Swati, correct?
Yes.
yes.
Now, what they are trying to say in this collect requirement is his area. Remember, Swati, he is not necessarily a technical guy. He has a technical overview, Swati, but he is more expert into what?
This is about.
Business, which is domain. Correct?
Yeah.
He knows how banking works. He is not a, Finacle or Oracle or, whatever. वो नहीं है. He is a banking guy. He actually, he is able to talk to the banking cashiers and clerks and all those roles there. That's the beauty of business analyst. So business analyst in his own cannot decide which requirements could be completed or which cannot be done. Is that fair to say?
True.
Second rule, which is taught into business analyst, and probably Shishir, you would probably, remember it into that thing. They say that when you are capturing the requirement, you are not supposed to say that this is not going to be possible there itself. You need to capture whatever they are saying. You
Yes.
are capturing into the notepad. Shishir is no more a promise that that's going to come in the scope, but आपको वो लिख लेना है.
Hmm.
That is one of the things. There is a certification called as CBAP.
Yes.
CBP. Anyone knows this? This is by the PMI. Have you heard about CBAP certification? Certified
Yes.
Business Analyst Professional. जैसा
Professional.
PMP है ना, Project Management Professional, there is a certificate CBAP. Yes, Vishakha, you are saying something?
Yeah, I heard about it. I heard
You heard
about it.
ना? तो ये विशाखा, one of the basic rule about CBAP is say that कि don't cut the user when he is giving you that requirement, thinking that कि ये होगा कि नहीं है. That you have another step where you are going to filter it. Let him speak about it. We are going to take a very funny example just to ensure everyone understand the thing, and that's related to painting the home. Estimation and all that thing, I will use that example of painting the home. Is painting the home project?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very much a project. Now,
Yes.
Maria, one of the person says that हमारा घर शर्मा जी के घर से अच्छा दिखना चाहिए. पेंटर के लिए, is that, could that be a requirement?
Not for the painter. Customer can say it.
Now what they are trying to say, Maria, they said, yes, it is a requirement. It is a requirement. Is that a scope? No.
No.
So does it mean that I mean, so Maria, I mean, I'm taking a very funny thing. Maria is, let's say a painting contractor, or let's say architect है, चलो आपको और थोड़ा ऊपर Maria. So
Yeah, painter ही रखो, कोई मसला
painter ही रखो, कोई बात नहीं. So now Maria,
Interior
what they
designer.
are trying to say कि वो शर्मा जी के घर से अच्छा होना चाहिए. पेंटर इज नॉट सपोज टू कम बैक एंड सेड कि नहीं नहीं वो वैसा कुछ नहीं होता. आप मेरे को बोलो कि एक्सटीरियर प्लास्टिक इनेमल चाहिए क्या चाहिए. नो, डोंट ब्रेक हिम. लेट हर और हिम से दैट यस मेरा घर शर्मा जी के घर से अच्छा होना चाहिए. Now
Yes.
in the next step, Maria, however, you can't accept and sign it like that. You have to now say that because you said that Sharma ji ka ghar ka aisa paint hai, we will put like this. They are having plastic enamel here, we will do like that. They have a 3D picture there in the bedroom, we will have it. So then you need to Maria, what I am trying to say, try to understand. I am actually trying to simply say the difference between collect requirement and define scope. Are you getting? This is a separate step.
Yes.
Are you realizing this? User saying that my web-based system should be secured is what? It's a requirement. It should be implemented using HTTPS as a solution is a defined scope. Are you getting? My
Yes.
site should be secured is his requirement. It should be done using RSA token is a scope. Are you getting this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tasty food is a requirement. Correct? With so many dishes there is a scope. So there is always two things here in collect requirement and define scope. However, while this thing is there, inherently one question comes to our mind is saying that if where in the charter you have already given the budget, now going to the user and start asking him with a new clean notepad and Shishir now say that कि चल बोल तेरे को क्या क्या चाहिए. Are you, did you miss an heartbeat there? Problem हो रहा है क्या कुछ यहाँ? Yes, Niranjan?
Yes, yes.
And what's that problem?
Scope creep can be there, right?
अभी पहले एग्री कर लिया कॉस्ट
Hmm.
टोटल बजट एंड नाउ यू आर सेइंग कि फ्रेश. सो आर यू गेटिंग दिस फ्रेंड्स? आई मीन व्हाट शिशिर सेड. You can't freeze the budget and then start collecting the requirement. Is that correct?
Yeah.
While here it is very clearly develop project charter is the very first process in initiation. This you are doing later. Now where is the connection? The connection and the most important thing try to understand, friends. And we spoke about it in some different contexts there. The thing is that whenever there is a commercial project, you should look it as a series of two projects. It is not one project. Whenever there is a commercial project, happens through two things. One is called as the pre-sale project and one is called as the delivery project. Pre-sale project and delivery project. Is that right for all of you people? There is a separate pre-sale team. There is, most of you could be probably playing the delivery related role. Is that right to say?
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Now, Maria, what happens is that in the delivery project, if you start from the scratch saying that requirement de do, it will be difficult because in the contract it is already agreed what is the total price. Now you can't go ahead and now if he starts giving you funny requirements, you can't fulfill them. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Now what happens in pre-sale project? Now listen to this carefully. This cycle is going to run twice. Pre-sale project is initiated, pre-sale project is planned, pre-sale project is executed, pre-sale project is monitored and controlled, pre-sale project gets closed with the contract getting signed. यहाँ पे pre-sale project खत्म हो गया where the contract is signed. Now the requirements are captured there, they are negotiated, frozen, a broad value is done, and closing of the pre-sale project will happen with contract getting signed off. The contract which also has a very clear requirements and scope defined. Is that clear?
नहीं सर, नहीं हुआ क्लियर, फिर से बताइए.
हाँ. So, um, Shishir, a business analyst, went to the customer. He did, initiation in terms of, for say some new customer, he was there. He did initiation ki I am currently working on that pre-sale project. Remember, वो project आया नहीं है शिशिर तेरे कंपनी में. You are
Yes.
only talking to them and you are going to say, sir कि एक 15 दिन में proposal वगैरह ready होके कर दूंगा, but उसके पहले I need to talk to you. I need to talk to your people and get the requirement. That's what Shishir is saying. So he planned all those 15 days of activity. In these things, I will meet to this department, that plant, that, all that thing. Then he will go ahead and do that thing. He will visit it, capture the requirement, negotiate those requirement. Finally sales team and Shishir will sit with them saying कि इतना requirement करना है तो सर आपको ना 50 lakhs आएगा. Now customer said, यार this is not, we are not thinking, why are you charging so much? So you said कि these functionalities you park, you don't take it. So these only if you keep, we will do it in 30 lakhs. So you said 30 lakhs मैं थोड़ा बढ़ा सकता हूँ, but I will need some more things. So some negotiation, and a day will come when they will say कि these are the requirements and 40 lakhs is the price. Correct, Shishir?
Yes, correct.
Now, on that day, there would be a mail, Kuldeep. Listen to this carefully, Kuldeep. I am sure in your company also these type of mails would be coming. The mail published by the sales department or the CEO of the company, and I am very happy to announce that we have signed a deal with such and such company. And next 6 months, they are going to do it. And I am congratulating Shishir for finally. Is that project delivery started, Kuldeep?
No.
नो. क्या खत्म हुआ है? प्रीसेल प्रोजेक्ट
Pre-sale
खत्म.
project.
Correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And that mail has one mention saying that this project is very prestigious, important for us, and Maria is going to lead the delivery project. Correct, friends? वो उसका चार्टर जैसे ही हो गया करीब करीब. Are you getting this? And now in Maria's project, she is not going to do collect requirement. Are you getting this? Because collect requirement is done for her project already by a team which was working on pre-sales. Is this understood, friends?
Yes.
Yes.
And that's why collect requirement will not be done for the delivery project, because वो already, I mean, you have already agreed the cost, all that. तो यहाँ पे जो collect requirement रहेगा, those could be some small nitty-gritties here. Saying that कि, I mean, do you want we to use, maybe even ये भी मुश्किल है, but maybe are you okay if we use .NET framework or Java? ये type का requirement हो सकता है. But now you can't say that कि I want also the, what, the CRM functionality. वो नहीं कर सकते. Requirement cannot be pushed like that. Are you getting this, friends? I mean, why? So you need to always visualize it as a two projects. Is that correct?
सर वो तो समझ में आ गई, लेकिन एक चीज जो नहीं आ रहा है मुझे समझ में, वो ये है कि प्रोजेक्ट चार्टर में जो हमने वो कॉस्ट वगैरह अपना फ्रीज कर लिया,
हाँ.
तो जो अभी हमने एग्जांपल लिया 40 और 50 लाख का,
हाँ.
तो उसमें मतलब कि the purpose is to contain cost within that range, right?
हाँ. Now cost is calculated by the delivery project later. Typically what will happen, that 40 lakhs is called as the price what you are charging to the customer. Now Maria will go ahead and calculate the cost, which hopefully will fit into 38. Hopefully I am saying because it is a later process. Now what happens typically, and Shishir and even Kuldeep, you will understand that, इसीलिए आपने देखा ना प्रीसेल प्रोजेक्ट में डिलीवरी वाला बंदा भी रहता है. Did you notice that?
But pre-sales
Yes,
also
yes.
calculate the cost, na?
Pre-sale
It
need
also
to,
calculate the cost.
exactly,
On-
Rajnish. They need to.
Yeah.
They need to, but उसके लिए क्या करते हैं Rajnish? Did you notice pre-sale team always will have one delivery representative, that project manager. कि भाई
Correct.
pre-sale वाले लोग estimate थोड़ी कर सकते हैं Rajnish.
No, basically they contact with the OEM and the vendors who supplies the hardwares and the things, hardware, software, whatever.
करेक्ट. बट एक्चुअल लेबर वाला कंपोनेंट के लिए तेरे को कोई ना कोई डिलीवरी वाला लगेगा. करेक्ट,
Correct,
रजनीश?
correct, correct,
तो
correct.
दे आर द फाइनल गाइस देयर. इनफैक्ट तू ओईएम से बात भी करेगा तो वो डिलीवरी वाला नीड टू से कि उसको एचपी का 16 जीबी सर्वर चाहिए 32, वो तो डिलीवरी वाला ही बोलेगा तेरे.
Correct, correct, correct.
सो प्रीसेल प्रोजेक्ट में डिलीवरी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव इज देयर, बट द प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजर फॉर दैट इज अ प्रीसेल गाय.
Yes,
है
yes,
ना?
yes, yes, yes.
Once वो साइन ऑफ हो गया कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, देन ही गिव्स इट टू दीज पीपल. In most of the situation, whosoever was the project manager involved into the pre-sale will become the project manager for the delivery project. But Rajnish, it is quite possible Rajnish was involved in the pre-sale stage, and from the delivery side later, Maria actually took over that. ऐसा हो सकता है. That's correct. But in that situation, 40 is already agreed. Maria now need to calculate her own thing, which would probably fit into the in that.
Optimization, cost optimization.
Correct. तो वो उसको करना पड़ेगा. Correct.
Mm.
So that's what it is, trying to say there. So that's what collect requirement. After collect requirement, you need to, as I told you, define scope, what is there inside. So this collect requirement will happen in the pre-sale project, not in the delivery project. But then, and in fact, define scope as well, because unless define scope, you can't. So define scope is done as a part of pre-sale. Now, what will happen is that once the scope is there, breaking it into the work breakdown structure will be done in the delivery project. Is that correct, friends? Are you getting this? कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में लिस्ट
Yes.
ऑफ डिलीवरेबल्स नहीं होता है, करेक्ट? Contract says this, these are the things which we are going to do. Scope statement, project scope statement and WBS are two different things. So project scope statement, if I go ahead and again use the same, painting example, project scope statement says that, we are going to give this type of painting, so many rooms are to be covered and all that thing. Now, breaking into the rooms, breaking into the activities below that will be done as a part of delivery, which is done in create WBS. Breaking the scope into the work packages is create WPS, because then each work package could be assigned to an individual. He could do the estimate and all that thing. That's why it is here. Once these three are completed, you go ahead and create an output, and that's called as a scope baseline. As you know, you are currently in making project plan. So it requires three baselines. One of them was a scope baseline, which gets created by collection of these three processes: collect requirement, define scope, create WBS, put together, create a scope baseline. Once it is done, it is given to the executor, and then this control scope is the guy who checks the current progress against the plant scope versus actual scope. Someone used the word called as a scope creep. Who was that?
I was that, Shishir.
What do you mean by scope creep?
Change, basically. I mean,
Now there is a
yeah.
small difference here. So you are right, it's a change, but there are two ways to look at change, Shishir, correct?
Yeah.
The planned change is not said to be a scope creep. An unplanned change is called as a scope creep. What does it mean is that, see, if it is a planned scope that will be raised by the customer, whatever, you will raise a CR for that. This CR will get approved. If it gets approved, it becomes part of the scope baseline itself. Then it is not a scope creep. It's an change. Correct? Scope creep, on the other hand, is the change which is getting into the system without proper approval. Now, I can see always, a little bit funny things in eyes of Shishir. ऐसा क्यों करूंगा यार मैं? Why would I do it? Correct, Shishir? Do you people think that sometimes this happens?
Because स्कोप क्रीप ये आई मीन टीम के लिए तो स्कोप क्रीप ही हुआ ना. आई मीन
अप्रूव किया तो कोई स्कोप क्रिप नहीं है, बट अप्रूव नहीं हुआ तो स्कोप क्रिप है. बट माय क्वेश्चन इज दैट डज योर टीम डू इट यार एवर? Listen to this carefully and tell me about this. So Shishir was very clear about the processes. He said that, customer picking up a phone and calling you and telling him, saying that, something in new is required to be done. So don't just like accept it. Always divert him to me. Correct, Shishir?
Yes.
I will talk to him. बात कर लूंगा, some commercial things and all that thing. We will approve that. If that change is approved, then you start working on to that. That is no more a scope creep. It's a change. It's an approved proper process change. Correct, Shishir?
Correct.
Arrange marriage है, love marriage नहीं है. Very funny analogy. Okay. So Shishir, are you getting this point between arrange marriage and change love marriage? The whole proper structured process वाला है ये. Is that making sense?
Yes.
Now let's listen the second part of the story is called as a love story. What happens here is that there was a, customer picked up phone and vice president from the customer side. Very common, very senior people from the customer side sometimes do have a habit to pick up a phone and directly talk. So he picked up the phone and tried to reach Shishir. The team member who was sitting there went ahead and told saying that कि शिशिर सर तो खाना खाने गए लंच के लिए, तो वो शायद आ जाएंगे लंच. I mean, he will be back by 1:30, so maybe you can call. So that vice president guy said कि हाँ, okay, Kuldeep, so you are there. Okay, see, I will tell you what I am going to talk to Shishir. I will tell you very quickly. He said that there is a third form into the whole development, and I want to make a small change there. This the data what you are picking up is coming from the only current customers there. I want also the old customers to come into that drop down. Very simple thing. So Kuldeep, finally, I think you work onto that. So Kuldeep said, "Ha, sir. I mean, finally, this type of thing always come to me." So he said, "What do you think will take the time?" He said, "Okay, sir. I mean, it's only one validation there, half a. So rather than picking up, for current customer के लिए for clause, I need to change into the SQL statement, and that's it." So the vice president says कि कुलदीप एक काम करो, आप चालू कर दो, because ये बहुत जरूरी है. It's very important. After Shishir comes, I will talk to him and get that thing done. And Kuldeep said, "इतना बड़ा boss. Shishir is a too big boss, and this vice president is too big boss." Kuldeep said कि सर ने बोला है तो कर तो लेंगे. Is that right, Shishir? Does this happen?
Yes.
This is called a scope creep. Did you notice this could go very easily unnoticed? By the time you come back, maybe Kuldeep forgot, or maybe whatever, maybe the customer forgot, and that change got done without that whole process. Is this uncommon? Is
No,
this very rare?
it's a very
Very
no,
rare thing. होता है ऐसा.
yeah.
Correct? Does it happen, friends?
Of course, it
Yeah.
happens.
Of course it does happen. Now, this is called a scope creep. Remember, I always say, in the last batch also, I use this very funny, Hindi phrase. Raj, probably you will, hopefully you will understand that phrase is that scope creep comes in Hindi, they call it as dabe paun chale aata hai. Have you heard this phrase? Dabe paun chale aana?
Yeah.
Raj, Pawan, did you hear this?
No, no, Sanjay.
Pawan, what does it mean? It comes in a very subtle way. It doesn't make a big noise and comes. It comes in a very subtle way. Correct, Pawan? It
Yes,
is
yes,
not
Sanjay.
that scope creep is, it ends up being a crime, but that crime is not done very intentionally. It happens inadvertently. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's what they are trying to say.
So संजय, फिर in this case स्कोप क्रिप को हम आइडेंटिफाई कैसे करेंगे? I mean, क्योंकि ये हुआ कि स्कोप क्रिप केम, वी इम्प्लीमेंटेड, वी नेवर टॉक अबाउट इट, हमने कॉस्टिंग भी नहीं किया, एनीथिंग नेवर
Nothing
हैपन अबाउट इट,
exactly.
राइट? सो
Correct.
सो हम वो कभी प्रोजेक्ट नहीं करेंगे टुवर्ड्स कस्टमर, आई मीन बिकॉज वी नेवर नो, राइट? तो
Now,
कैसे?
that's the
हाँ.
reason for which
हम्म.
Shishir, they said that scope creep is a crime.
हम्म.
It should not happen. You need to have all the processes. And I was actually coming to this word, Shishir, when I said about control scope. Frankly speaking, control scope is that process, Shishir.
ओके.
See, planned versus actual में planned versus actual scope में क्या करना है? Planned versus actual schedule में you will check timeline. Planned versus actual cost में you will check the cost. What do you check in planned versus actual scope? It is not what was planned to be delivered, what is done. It is also saying that have you delivered something which you are not agreed. Scope creep is checked by these guys.
ओके.
Correct? You need to maintain a tracker of all the deliverables, and that tracker you need to keep on updating on a continuous basis, saying that कि इसमें से क्या क्या deliver हुआ है, what is short delivered and what is excess delivered is a scope creep. Correct?
सर उसको रिक्वायरमेंट ट्रेसेबिलिटी मैट्रिक्स में करेंगे क्या?
Now requirement traceability metrics which we are going to discuss. So friends, because Kuldeep raised this word, let me explain you. It is actually a document list of the things there, and one of the tool here, as Kuldeep is saying, is requirement traceability metrics. What is that? I will explain first, and then I will answer this question, Kuldeep. Is that okay?
Definitely, sir.
So control scope is that guy. He is actually checking planned versus actual. He is the one, Shishir, who will first come to know any scope creep is there. Correct? Yes, Shishir, is that clear?
Yes.
Validate scope is, dark blue color. What does it mean? Did you notice there is a color code here in this slide? What is the significance of this dark blue background?
A person with authorities like
No, I call it
customers.
as a 48th process. This is my way of saying, not necessarily 48th. What does it mean? This is 49. Correct? This is first.
Okay, so input for the closing project. I mean the final thing. That's what
Closing.
we do. Yeah.
इसके बाद क्या होता है? Closing, which means this is customer acceptance. Correct? This is after control quality, customer's acceptance. After that happens, what happens? Closing. So that's why I call it as 48. Remember, don't take it very linear. I am trying to explain some of the things because you will remember it properly, Shishir. This 48 process could happen 15 times in a project. Why? Because there could be 15 deliverable. Each deliverable will have to be accepted by the customer. Correct, friends? So validate scope will happen multiple times for every deliverable. But for that deliverable, once it happens, it goes into the closing. So is it that closing will happen only once? No, it will happen so many times. Every time when you are handing over something, the closing for that particular deliverable will happen. It's not, that. So that's where it is called as close project or phase. So it's not only close project. So close project or phase is what they are trying to say here. Is this clear so far? So an overview of the scope related processes, and having said that, now it's the time to go ahead and understand these processes in detail. So that's where I am entering into the scope chapter. Let me go back to the title, and from there I will come into the scope chapter. So there, project scope management. So the chapter number 5 in the PMBOK is what we are going to learn now. The very first objective of the process is deliver all and only. Remember, deliver all means whatever is agreed in the scope, you must deliver. You should only deliver that what is agreed in the scope. Doing anything outside the thing is called as a scope creep. It's a crime. Sometimes the scope creep comes under a, as I was using that word, a very subtle way, Pawan. In a subtle way. And that subtle way, Pawan, sometimes comes as the customer value add. Have you heard that, Pawan? Sometimes you end up delivering something which is not in the scope under the name of customer value add. Does that happen?
Yeah, it does.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, always.
Any example, Pawan, comes to your mind?
Any new feature added, say suppose like any for a project we
Automations.
have got. Yeah.
Many of the reports, right, which helps customer for their business.
They will come back. Did you notice now are you getting, Shishir, why scope creep happens?
Yeah.
Here it is not even vice president doing it. It is your own guy. This guy like a Kuldeep. He is trying to do that out of his, he is technically excellent. यार वो जाके और कुछ अच्छा डिजाइन करके डाल देता है स्कोप में. Is that right?
It happens.
And poor guy is under an impression saying that Shishir is going to now, praise me. When I am saying Shishir, I am saying project manager. Are you getting, Kuldeep?
Yes, sir.
But गाली पड़ता है. Pawan and, all those people, which means, then customer, the project manager shouts at him. Does that happen? Did you shout? Sometimes Kuldeep, Pawan, on your people, कि किसने बोला तेरे को? Why did you do this?
Yeah.
Huh? Now what happens, there are challenges, Pawan. One of the problems is that the cost and time might increase. Second problem is that some efforts are required for that. Third problem there is that there are cascading things. उसके लिए documentation will be required. Post go live, some additional, bug comes. So listen to this carefully, Pawan. If there is a bug comes into a functionality which you have delivered outside the scope, which was not in the scope, you delivered it out of your enthusiasm, additional thing, and there was a bug in that. Pawan, are the customer going to come back and tell you, say that anyway that you gave it to me free, so now what can we do? Will that happen?
Yeah.
Huh? Customer will come back and
No.
shout at you, Pawan.
Yeah.
He will say कि ये तुमने दिया है, Pawan. It is your team. Now, if it is not working, you need to fix. That day, Pawan, you can't go back and say कि sir, this is free. I have not, decided that. Is that making sense? Are you
Yeah.
getting, Pawan?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You bought the clothes from a cloth shop. Correct, Pawan?
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, all over India, there is, so much of rains happening there. He gave you, while coming there, he gave you, some whatever, a plastic bag. And
Mhm.
that brand new shirt, you kept into that plastic bag. You came out of the shop and that plastic bag torn off and your shirt fall onto the shirt, onto the road. There was all the mud there. Are you
Right.
going to say that anyway this I have paid only for the shirt, I have not paid for the plastic bag? So what can shopkeeper do? You will not. You will go ahead and shout at him, saying that how did you give this plastic bag? Is that right, Pawan?
Yes, yes.
This is very funny example, Pawan. I am actually giving a very casual example. In real
Got.
project, this could happen. Are you getting my point?
Yes, yes. I can
Yes.
relate that.
So those things you need to do it, and that's where only is important. Swati, you are saying something.
No, I just agreed upon this
That's how
scenario.
it happens. It's so, and that's where only is important. There is a typical, Britisher or maybe American word called as gold plating. Have you heard this word, gold plating? ए
Yeah.
शिशिर ये खुला है क्या तेरे पास चैट जीपीटी
Hmm.
हाँ एनीवन
Yeah.
हैज
Yeah.
चैट जीपीटी
No.
ओपन
Open.
सर्च gold plating in PMP, yeah, project management. Just search, and that is called as gold plating. Did someone reach? Anyone who reaches first, start reading.
In
Yeah.
project
Right.
management terms, goal plating refers to the intentional additional addition of extra features and deliverables that were not part of the original scope of the project, even if they are well intentioned and done to please the customer.
Are you getting? And did they ever even said that gold plating is a bad practice in project management? Have they said that in
Yes.
the chat GPT? I don't know, but let us understand. That's what they
Why
say.
gold plating is a problem?
Gold plating is a problem. Correct, Pawan? Is that what it is saying?
Yes, yes.
Correct. So that's what they are saying. Are you realizing why it is there? And that's what I said, Pawan, saying that, they will not come to you saying that, I am doing scope creep. That guy will come back and say, sir, I am doing the value add to the customer. Did you notice that?
Yes.
That guy will come back to you and say, I have done this value add, sir. And he would probably think that you should appreciate him. Very funny thing. But PMI very clearly says that it's not a good practice. It will bring you into the trouble in long run. Very important thing is that what is included and what is not included. Very, in the project scope here, in the defined scope, you are going to create an output called as scope statement. In the scope statement, one of the good practice is to have what is in scope and what is not in the scope. They very clearly say that. I'm sure in all your contracts, all your purchase orders and all that thing, there would be a paragraph called as not in scope. Is that correct, friends?
Yes.
It's very common. You need to have that so that you are explicitly saying this is not there. So plan scope management, collect requirement, we spoke about it. Create WBS, validate scope and control scope. These are the 5 processes. As usual, whenever new chapter starts, the first slide is called as the concept. First one, scope covers product scope and project scope. We spoke about it on the last Saturday. But just to quickly recap, if you have forgotten, product scope is what is the deliverable you are creating. Project scope are the activities you need to do for project to be done. In turn, for example, project plan is not a deliverable. Customer is not going to pay you for the project plan, but you need to make the project plan. And that's called as a project scope. Recruitment of the staff, getting the infrastructure, giving training to the people. All those things are coming under project scope, even though they are not on the product scope. Your team getting trained into appropriate technology is required for you. That's called as a project scope, but not necessarily it's sort of product scope. Product scope is whatever they create and deliver it there. So project scope and product scope are there, and in scope management you need to address both. Changes into the product scope are certainly the changes, but changes into the project scope are also the changes. You need to route it to the same process there. Project life cycle could be productive. If that happens, what you are going to do finally is decided in the beginning, and then you are progressively elaborating the plan. So basically you decide what you are going to do in 8 months of duration if it is a project duration, and then make a plan for 1 month at a time. Remember, there would be a broad level plan for 8 months, a detailed level plan for 1 month. You will keep on doing it at the end of every month, and that's what it is called as progressively elaborated. In case of iterative life cycle, the product scope for each iteration is picked up from the product backlog, and then collect requirement, define scope, create WBS is done for that iteration, only for that iteration. The sprint planning meeting is nothing else but collect requirement. It's collect requirement. The define scope is happening during that, backlog grooming and all that. In case of iterative or adaptive life cycle, the involvement of sponsor and customer is continuous. Remember, if it is an agile thing, daily scrum meeting and all that thing, it's good that they are present. Most of them should be present that point on time. Valid scope and control scope are done for each iteration. So basically, at the end of every iteration, you are going to show it to the product owner, and that's what is validated scope. Validated scope is acceptance. So that sprint review meeting is validated scope, and obviously control scope is done in the daily scrum meeting, so that you are checking plan versus actual there. In case of productive life cycle, scope baseline is approved at the start. In case of iterative, it is handled by the product backlog. Then completion of the project is, tracked against the project plan. Product life cycle is based on the product requirement. Now listen, this is very important thing. We'll take a 5 minutes break, as Raj was that Raj? No, it was Kuldeep
Kuldeep.
was saying. So Kuldeep will take 5 minutes of break at the end of this particular slide.
Okay,
And
sir.
literally 5 minutes of comfort break. We are going to take a little bigger coffee break later. Is that okay, friends?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So coming back to this
You are
particular
good.
thing, because now coming back to here, it is saying that completion of project is tracked against the project plan. Product life cycle is based on the product requirement. In simple words, Vishakha, are you there with me? Yes, Vishakha, is she there?
Yes,
Rajnish,
Sanjay.
Rajnish,
Yes, yes.
yes, Rajnish. So Rajnish and Vishakha, what happened is that both of them, they were doing the project. They were doing all the project, and once they were doing all the project, the deliverers were created, they were shown to the customer accepted it, and then they got a mail from the customer, everything is fine, done. And Vishakha says that ki khatam ho gaya project, now I am moving out onto the next project. Correct, friends? Understood so far?
Yes.
Now, what happened is that when she was trying to do that, the quality guy actually comes back and tells Vishakha, saying that Vishakha, aap nahi ja sakti, you can't go. You have not completed the project. She said, what are you telling? See, this was the all of the list of the deliverable I have given to him. They have accepted it. अब क्या रह गया? क्या रह गया, विशाखा? What remained?
UAT.
Project
User acceptance के बगैर
closure.
होगा ही नहीं, रजनीश. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Project closure.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Good. Project closure रह गया. It's a
Sir,
product closure you have done, Vishakha.
उसमें
Product
सर
you have
lesson
closed.
learned
Project you
करना
have not
पड़ता है.
closed it.
So we have completed everything, but we have to do that final sign off and closure and taking the acceptance from all the stakeholder, accepting, taking the consent that finally and formally we are closing this as per the given requirements
Now
or schedule.
only first part is that customer acceptance हुआ. That's okay. But Vishakha, you need to go ahead and release the resources.
Okay, right,
You need
right.
to capture the lessons learned. You need to, in that project plan, update appropriate templates.
Correct.
Unless you do that, that quality guy is not going to let you go.
Correct.
Customer let you go because whatever he was required, he has taken. But it doesn't happen. That's what is this sentence. Completion of the project is tracked against the project plan. Product life cycle is based on product requirement. Product requirements are delivered, but you need to have a project related requirements as well. You need to complete that. There are certain organizations, I don't know if your organization has that, they have something called as a project appraisal for each resource. Do you have some practice? I mean, have you heard about such practice like that? Project appraisal for each of the team member.
Mm-hmm.
वो
बोनस
उसका
से
एनुअल
करते हैं
अप्रेजल
क्या?
नहीं होता है विशाखा.
Performance based on the project.
Performance for that project विशाखा. Also, I mean, he would have worked in 6 different projects. वो 6 का input लेके his final appraisal will be done. Correct, विशाखा?
Correct.
But that you can't do in the month of March. आपका project अक्टूबर में खत्म हुआ है तो in October you need to do his appraisal for that. Correct?
Correct.
You can't walk out of that project. That is all important. That's what he's saying against the project plan. Product life cycle is the product requirement. That's what they are trying to say. Are you very funny, example maybe like that, but, at least in good old days, when I was there at your stage, probably that, a man cooking into the kitchen was not very common sort of a thing those days, so I'm sure you would have heard about it. Maybe your parents were like that. Swati, Vishakha, maybe your father was like
Yeah.
that. Not very common
Not,
for
not,
him to go
yeah.
ahead and cook, isn't it? Yes, Swati.
Yeah, they were helping, but they were actually not cooking.
ऐसे नहीं करते थे वो लोग. But
Yeah.
you remember, Swati, that you know that the day on which he was deciding I will cook everything, all the kids used to be very happy, isn't it?
Party
Yes.
time होता
Especially
था.
the wife.
या
कब
मेरे
बनाएगा तो he
मेरे
is
यहाँ
brilliant.
तो
Correct,
कॉमन
Vishakha?
है.
हाँ.
फॉर मी इट्स वेरी कॉमन.
Yeah, I mean that's where I said that it was a good old story there. So Vishaka, did you ever took feedback from your mother for that day? आप सब तो खुश होते थे कि आज डैडी बनाएंगे खाना.
Usually it happens that if
What
dad
was
is
your
taking
mother
the
saying that day?
initiative,
I will tell
she's
you,
a very
mother
good
will say
cook.
that कि नहीं यार ये ना तुम लोग करोगे एक दिन खाना बनाओगे लेकिन बाद में it becomes so much of a headache that it's good that
Correct.
I make it for myself. Have you heard these
Yes.
type of things sometimes?
Yes, a lot. A lot.
A lot, isn't it? शिशिर आप बोल.
यस.
Now why? Why? Because you do the product delivery well. You don't do the project closure. Project closure problem होता है और project closure तू नहीं करेगा ना, it becomes a nightmare for the thing. The way in which you will leave that kitchen will tell the lady who is going to do. I'm not doing gender things Swati here. What I'm trying to say is that the person who is going to continuously बोले यार ये ना करता तो है थोड़ा but बाद में ये he will leave so much of a mess there it becomes difficult. Are you getting the difference between product delivery and project delivery? And both are important. Are you getting this? Project deliverables are tagged against the project plan. Product is a product requirement. आपका वो फूड खाना बन गया आ गया हॉल में शिशिर, product requirement fulfilled. But that doesn't complete the project plan. Project plan means cleaning the gas stove, keeping everything in the place. Correct? So there are so many other delays. Very funny example, but are you getting my point? Project is tracked against the project plan, product is tracked against the product requirement. There is a
Yes.
difference between these two, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Product life cycle is often bigger than the project life cycle. That we have seen, already into the thing. Validated scope takes the validated delivery. We spoke about
सर
it.
उल्टा नहीं होना चाहिए. प्रोजेक्ट लाइफ साइकिल इज बिगर देन प्रोडक्ट लाइफ.
Now here what happens, Kuldeep, is that this word as a product has two meanings. कुलदीप याद है कुछ जमाने में ऐसा रहता था कि ग्रैंडफादर का नाम नातू को भी रखते थे, पोते का नाम वही रहता था. याद है ऐसा?
हाँ वो सब
Particularly if
जूनियर जूनियर 1 जूनियर 2 लगा के करते थे.
हाँ नहीं, इनफैक्ट if the grandfather is died before this boy was born, in
होता है.
his memory उसका नाम रखते थे वो, याद है ना?
यस.
हाँ वो सब चलता है
Yeah.
सर.
वो चलता था ना वो. अभी वो सामने रहेंगे तो नहीं रखेंगे, दैट्स नॉट गुड. But when if he's died recently, then just to memorize the grandfather's name was being kept to the son. Now, very funny analogy, but what I'm trying to see, there are two words as a product. One is the bigger product, where there is a development, maturity, growth wala lamba life cycle wala graph. We have seen it. Correct? That product is there, but another name called as a product is an output of a project also. They are coincidentally the word called as a product. Are you seeing this? the grandfather's life cycle is bigger than the
Yes,
project
sir.
life cycle is
समझ गया
truth.
सर सर.
बट ये वो बच्चा छोटा होता है उसका, आई मीन वो प्रोडक्ट इज, तो वो वर्ड ट्वाइस आया है तो इसके लिए थोड़ा कंफ्यूजिंग है, बट डोंट गेट पैनिक अबाउट इट. This word we have already seen there. So I think that's where we'll actually go ahead and take a very small, as I told you, a 5 minutes of comfort break. I will put it on to the pause as usual, so remind me to start the recording again. So coming back to this, some concepts related to that. As you know, that all the knowledge areas, when we start with that, there are some concepts here. It is again trying to say direct and manage project work, which creates the deliverable. They are given to the control quality who converts them into the verified deliverable. This is your own team. They are then offered to the customer who makes it into accepted deliverable, and finally close project. This whole thing I have shown it to you using arrow on that master diagram. Initial concepts, some trends and emerging, no, sorry, trends and emerging practices. What are the latest changes which are happening about the thing? They are saying requirements are the backbone of the thing. Often the requirement management starts in the portfolio itself, which is there. Thinking that you are a project manager, all requirements will be given to you right in the beginning is not going to happen, is what he is trying to say. Project team need to collaborate very closely with the business to understand the problem and give a proper solution. This is what they are saying is very common these days. Don't think that the end users are capable, as well as it is their responsibility to tell you what is the solution. His responsibility, or you should restrict him to tell what is his problem, and you give the solution, is always a better deal, as against customer expecting customer that he told me to do so I did it. So for example, if I will go ahead and take this in convert it to an example, customer said that that I want this website to be secured. So you tell him, what do you what do you want? So he said that I think I want to implement what that RSA token based security. You went ahead and implemented. Now that's not the right approach. He said that ask him some questions. Said why is he saying that, and then you decide whether RSA token is useful thing, OTP is a better way, HTTPS is good. Which is the way in which you should go about it? You decide the solution rather. So let him let him specify his problem, and you decide the solution, is what he is trying to say. And always makes a sense if you realize that when customers start say giving you the solution itself, then you are at loss. एक minute. So there was a call which I was required to take. Now coming back to project team need to collaborate. Yeah, that's what we have seen. Let them tell the problem, and solution you decide there. Requirement closure will transition the product. Yes, that's there. Requirement capture in a project should be assigned to a person who has a business and domain skill, and that's where I was telling business analyst. And one of the very common thing is that when there is a business analyst there, project manager and business analyst need to respect their own boundaries. Typically for delivering the project fast, project manager will insist the business analyst to cut down onto the requirement time. If business analyst said that this I will need 8 days of discussions with the customer to freeze the requirement, project manager said 4 दिन में नहीं कर सकता क्या? Now remember that 4 days what you are trying to save here could result into a huge change request and rework later. Are you realizing what I am trying to say? Time saved in the
Yes.
requirement capture sometimes ends up getting very serious later. Yes, Swati?
Yeah.
So that's what, these 3 bullet points are actually saying, that you should ensure that, it's very important phase there. Tailoring, you can read it yourself, nothing specific. And in case of agile, most impacted knowledge area, scope is the most impacted knowledge area here. In the productive life cycle, scope is given, time is calculated. And in the agile, the timeline is given and scope is calculated. See, there was so much of a work, and this lady is trying to calculate how many days do I will need, to complete it. In case of adaptive, this guy says that I need to do it in this much of a time, how much scope I can pick up. So that's the fundamental difference between them. Plan scope management, as I told you, a strategy process, creating the scope management plan and requirement management plan, which are subsidiary of the overall project management plan. As I told you, it's a how process, it's a strategy. It's not going to tell you what is the scope, what is the requirement. It is only saying how are you going to define the scope, how are you going to define and capture and store the requirement. So it's all strategy. So all the inputs there, alternative analysis, we spoke in the integration chapter, multiple ways, for capturing the requirement, possibilities that do the interviews, possibilities that read the document your understanding and get it signed off, multiple alternatives to do it. Something will save something. Go ahead and, have face-to-face meeting with each of the stakeholder versus have a Zoom calls versus a video call. Multiple alternatives are there. So which one are there, you need to decide. Options of the requirement gathering and validating the scope. Validate scope is customer's acceptance. Do you want customer to come to your site, do the acceptance testing here and then goes back and then you ship it, or you want to send the product and he does that testing there? It all depends. So validate scope, multiple options for that. Then meetings and output called as a scope management plan. Remember, everything starts with how will the project scope statement, how WBS will be created, how the scope baseline will be made, how this is not saying what. It is not saying what is the scope, what is the baseline. That will come in the later. Remember, currently, if you visualize this, into the larger picture here, you are speaking about this. This is about how. This is about what. So that's why this is saying so many how statements. Strategy and requirement management plan. This is again strategy for the requirement. Requirement management. How will the requirement be collected? Will you do interview? Will you do questionnaire and surveys? Will you go ahead and read some document and capture it? Will you go ahead and take the requirement for similar prior product, document it together, and then change it on the exception basis? How are you going to do that thing? How are you going to analyze this? How are you going to document? Are you going to use some tool? Are you going to write the requirements in some Word document or some pre-created Excel template? Or do you have any tool? There are tools as well. There is something called as a Requisite Pro. When I was in industry, it was, I think, IBM Requisite Pro was one of the thing there. For Agile, I think there are so many, tools which are already there. For capturing the product backlog and sprint backlog. Is anyone aware of any such tool in Agile? Because Agile, I have not used those tools. Yes, Pawan?
Jira is the tool that we are
In
actually
Jira,
using.
you use it, okay.
Yes.
But I think there are some dedicated Agile related tools as well, Pawan, isn't it?
Trello is the other one we are currently using from the product side.
So
That
those
is what
are
we
the,
use.
things. That's what he's
Sorry,
trying to
what is
say.
that tool? Shashir, can you tell me?
Trello, Trello.
Trello. Okay. Trello. Okay. Trello. Oh, Trello. Okay.
Hmm. Then configuration management to use track requirement, how are you going to give unique number to each requirement? And if there is a change, how are you going to do it? Remember, in the requirement down the line, if there are changes, it becomes a nightmare, that he will give you some requirement in the beginning and then he will come back and say, I think you should also include this. And then he said that I think you should also include. Then he comes back and says, no, this one I want to. No, if there are 5 such changes happen, remember, friends, you are sitting onto a time bomb. The final presentation, when you will be giving, something or the other you will miss there. That's where he said that configuration management, tell how are you going to track the requirements. from initial thing to the end. So that's what he's trying to say. Requirement prioritization. As I told you, how are you? Are you going to give the priority as high, low, medium? Or as I told you, essential, then, something called as must, then nice to have, then won't have, those type of thing. There is one more very commonly used is called as Moscow. MOSCOW, Moscow. It says that requirements are called as must have, then should have. Some requirements are must have, some of them are should have, some of them are called as could have, or nice to have type, could have. And the last one is called as won't have, which means they are not going to be there. So each requirement, you call it as must have, should have, could have, and won't have. So that's what is there. That's one of the method. So this method is decided in the requirement management plan. So that down the line, once requirements are captured, you give one of the thing: MOS, MOSCO, or W. Some requirement will be MO, some of them will be S, some of them will be CO, and some of them will be W. So Moscow. This methodology of prioritization is in the requirement management. Requirement traceability process. Now, this is requirement traceability saying that how the changes. See, when customer gives you a requirement, you take it as a requirement. This requirement, you go ahead and then convert that into design. Now, design itself could be two stage, maybe high level, low level. Then you go ahead and do a development. After development, you do the testing. Now, this is how the whole life cycle is going to, go through. Now, what they are trying to say is that 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever requirements is giving, capture those requirements here. Then when you go ahead and say these two requirements are covered in this design of the design 01 aspect. This requirement is handled into design 2. This is done into the database design. So wherever you have done this design, you have done this design aspect need to reflect into the development. This was done into .jar file. This was done into this Java file. This was then reflected into the testing. So each requirement what you have captured at the start of the project need to reflect into some or the other test cases, which ensures that till the end you are tracking it. Are you getting advantage of such a tracker? Yes, friends. Everyone understood advantage of this tracker. Shishir, what will happen is that in the end, if someone comes back and मैंने ये बोला था शिशिर तुमने किया क्यों नहीं? That the chances of that particular type of thing gets reduced drastically here. Because they are tracking everything what he said and how did that, how was that delivered? Correct, friends? Kuldeep, are you there with me?
Yes, sir.
And what is this chart called as?
Requirement management, requirement traceability matrix.
So basically, this particular type of chart is called as requirement traceability matrix, which means from the beginning till the end, this should be done. That's what it is trying to say. Did you notice, friends, that I'm sure, almost all of you would have actually gone ahead and sometimes given, car for servicing. Is that right? To the workshop? Very common scenario. अब उसको बोलते हो ना वो सामने का वाइपर का थोड़ा चेंज कर लेना, ये व्हील थोड़ा ये कर लेना, all those requirements. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
And in the evening when you go ahead and start taking that thing, you go ahead and try to check how was that done. Now remember, friends, it's not that simple. When you told it to that guy who was wearing that, light blue shirt, pakad ke likh ke leta tha na Shishir, that guy is not going to do the washing. That guy is not going to change the wheel. There are so many people who are going to do it later. Are you getting, Shishir?
Right.
That
He's
guy
just
is
your
only
advisor.
going to come in the evening and show it to you, sir, ye ho gaya karke. Now he need to have a complete system saying that whatever Shishir told it to that guy should get reflected into the product. उनका भी ऐसे होगा ना, requirement to the design to the development and final testing. Correct?
Correct.
Some tracker like that will be called as RTM. Now, I don't know, in workshops, car workshops, if they use some format for that, or maybe, they call it as a job sheet, I think. वो job sheet में ही करते हैं.
Job
हो
sheet में
सकता
they
है,
usually entered everything. Yeah.
they might be entering it there, but because it is probably simple, Kuldeep, Shishir, because this requirement is getting captured at 9 a.m. and product is getting delivered at 5 p.m. Correct?
Correct.
Now, if you are going to capture the requirement in the month of February and going to deliver the product in July, there are bright chances you will forget one of them, or your team will forget something. Correct? So, best way is use such a chart, and it's called as RTM, requirement traceability matrix. Okay, and what they are trying to say, the format for RTM or tools which you are going to use, that is decided in requirement management part. Then comes collect requirement. Collecting the requirement. Objective is to
Sir, one
acquire
second.
the required. Yes, Kuldeep.
Sir, where is scope management plan as in the output?
है ना, ये इसके पहले था ना, ये
Oh, ठीक है सर.
के बाद रिक्वायरमेंट दो है ना इसके आउटपुट. देयर
Yes
आर
sir.
टू
हाँ
आउटपुट.
ठीक है सर, हो गया ठीक है.
So it's there. Collect requirement. Objective is to capture the stakeholder requirement and the needs. This is then used to define the project scope, because collect requirement then is going to get translated into define scope. That's what he's saying. This collect requirement will go into define scope, is this sentence is trying to say. Active involvement of stakeholder in this process ensures that the success of project later. Now, remember, some of the sentences are very simple, but they are complicated enough. Did you realize that sometimes, people don't give enough time? I am saying, when I say people, it's not your team, not your technical team. The customer himself says that I am too busy to give the requirement. Did you came across this type of customers?
Yes, I
Yes.
have.
Yes.
Very common, na Maria?
Yes.
It becomes a headache later.
Yes.
Because that does not mean that he will let you go without any functionality. That day you can't say, Maria, that कि तुमने बोला ही नहीं था. He will come back and expect everything there. Correct? Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
Right.
what they are saying. Active involvement of stakeholder in this process will ensure that the success of the project later. Sometimes people say कि अभी मैं बहुत बिजी हूँ, तो आप लिख लो ना जो करना है हमें. और worse than that, I have came across, and I am sure probably Maria, you would have, also seen is that, you go ahead and ask that requirement to the department head. Department head says that, see, currently, some customer reviews are going on. So, go to that senior manager, he will do it for you. You go to that senior manager asking him the required. He said कि थोड़ा ना वो साहब बोल रहे थे, तो वो मैनेजर है उसके पास चले जाओ, and they will send it to someone down the thing, and he will give the requirement. Did you notice, Maria? You are sitting on a time bomb in that situation, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Final acceptance में the top guy will say ये report है ही नहीं, and then you said कि वो बंदा तो मेरे को नहीं बोला ना. Now that becomes a big problem, and that's what he is trying to say. Active involvement is very important, without which you can land into real serious trouble. Requirements sometimes could be direct specifications, or they could be expected capability. So both of those things are possible. You need to convert it into appropriating. If it is a specification, you need to go ahead and start building it, or designing it. If it is a capability, you'll have to take one more step there. Inputs, project charter, as I told you, because that's a boundary. Project charter is an extreme boundary of the scope. So while requirements, you can actually keep that handy. These are all the inputs. Nothing to explain, nothing new there. Expert judgment, obviously capturing requirement, people like business analyst or equivalent are there, and they are all over the industry. Don't even think that the caterer or event management company does not have a business analyst. They need it. You need to have the people who are like that. That's the expert judgment which is there. Data gathering, collect requirement is all about the gathering. So a lot of data gathering tools like brainstorming, interviews, focus group. As I told you, interviews are good for senior people. You can ask probing questions. The answer of one question will lead another question. So a multiple question series could be coming up in interview. That becomes difficult, in other formats like the brainstorming or focus group. Focus group are brainstorming in a particular groups. Brainstorming is, little random, more democratic process there. Some requirements also could be captured better using the questions and surveys. Maybe you want to capture views. How should the screen look like from 1,000 users? Now with 1,000 users, you can't do interview. With 1,000 users, doing even brainstorming is very difficult. So questionnaires and surveys, create a Google form and send a link and expect their answers there. Remember, one of the problem of questionnaires and surveys is that response is always limited. Based on the interesting thing, sometimes only 10% people respond to the questionnaires and surveys. So you need to decide where to use it. Benchmarking is very commonly used, where you are going to show some sample product, and then based on that sample product, they say that this is what I want. So when customers are not able to tell you exactly what do they want, they benchmark it. Data analysis is obviously required. Once you capture the requirement, they call it as analyzing the agreement, business plans, problem logs. When sometimes you look at the prior version and see which are all the complaints. If you are going to upgrade something, you will go ahead and take the problem log or issue log. If it is a white good product, then service center details. Is that correct, friends? Are service center details useful for the people who are working on to new model of car? Do they need to get in touch with service center? Yes, you
Yes.
are.
Yes.
And why is that important? Why is that important?
The repairs can't be made outside.
Exactly. Because Raj, they are the one who are seeing it, correct?
Yes.
They are the one who will say that, ki, sir, in this particular thing, whenever we are trying to open the steering wheel and try to change only one wire there, I need to change so many things. Can't you do something that, I am able to change that without. Now, these are the inputs which will come only from that. What are you doing? You are analyzing the problem log. And with that, you are coming up with the specific. See, this is all requirement. You are going to freeze the requirement for the new model or new enhancement. So, problem log. Decision making is, once there are so many requirements, you need to decide which one are priority, which one are not priority. So you need to, do the decision making. One of the option is go by the voting, and I think we spoke about this particular thing called as the unanimity, which means everyone agrees to one solution, or majority versus plurality. Majority more than 50% vote. Plurality means whichever is the highest one is there. So any of them, sometimes autocratic, we spoke also about it. Basically, a dictatorship is sometimes required. Sometimes multi-criteria decision. So very commonly these type of things are, if it is a IT type of system, the one of the criteria could be number of users impacted. One of the criteria could be saying that is it impacting financially. One of the criteria could be how much investment is required. These are the criterias, and each of the requirement will be weighted on the basis of that. The requirements which are impacting multiple user will be given priority. The requirements which are impacting the financial things will be on a priority. Those are the ways and in which you need to do multi-criteria decision analysis technique. Then data representation is done in affinity and mind map. Look at it here. This is how the affinity diagram looks. See what happens if you are doing the brainstorming. You take brainstorming. So one of the way is give those post-it cheats, those sticker wala cheats to all the participants who are doing the brainstorming. Circulate it to them, and they ask them to randomly write whatever they think is required. Whatever is the requirement, they write it there. Once all those cheats comes there, the facilitator will use a whiteboard, and on that whiteboard he will go ahead and create multiple groups. He will say that these are the requirements which are related to safety of the product. This is going to optimize the cost. It is going to reduce the cost of the product. This is going to improve the look and feel of the product. So multiple, and the requirement which is falling into appropriate group will be pasted in that. So basically it's a affinity diagram is a diagram which allow you to generate randomly generated ideas in a group. So group, you can group them. On the other hand, mind map is also sometimes used. Mind map are, where, remember this all you are doing for collect requirement. You should never forget where are we. We are here in collect requirement right now. So in collect requirement, mind map will be used for, so for example, you said the new version of the product. That's the center of it. So that's what. Let's say I'm going to do, now I'm going to plan a new training. Let's say I want to conduct some new training and I want to develop that. Now here, so here, let's say I want to give training to the staff in, let's say, Primavera. Now that's a new tool. So Primavera training is what I want to do. Now in the training, when it is there, I need to actually go ahead and see that, what are the technical requirements of the thing. I need to also see, what are the commercial for this one and what are the tools required for this training. What are the tools for this training and what are the expectations, let's say, from, type of customer. Then in terms of technology, it should have a scheduling functionality, it should have a costing functionality, it should have a resource management functionality. In the resource management, it should have these things there. Then I will go ahead and say that, in terms, so basically keep on breaking it there. That's called as mind map. So mind map is helping you to, go ahead and elaborate something, double click kar dejo. There are tools which are available. There is a Microsoft Mind Map, which is a tool there, which allows you to, keep on doing the thing there. Someone can actually go ahead and type, the mind map for project management. Can someone do it in Chat GPT? Just see that. Is it showing something?
For mind mapping?
Mind map. It will create a mind map for that.
सर क्या करना है फिर से बताएंगे, मैं भी थोड़ा करता हूँ जैसे।
Yes, Kuldeep, you are saying something?
Yes, sir. What do we need to do on ChatGPT?
Check mind map for project management.
Okay.
देख मिलेगा वो. Should I try it or it shows a lot of things there, So, एक minute, let me do it so that everyone can watch.
Or define objectives, feasibility studies.
So वो mind map करेगा वो. I mean, so एक minute, Chat GPT. Let me put it here.
It is depicting initiation, planning, everything, time management,
Now
cost
below
management.
initiation, he will go ahead and do still more breakup, है ना?
Project goal, business case, and
Correct.
so on.
Mind map for project management. आप किसी भी चीज के लिए कर सकते हो. It will go ahead and do that, mind map. Mind map is basically, take one idea and keep on doing double click and keep on opening next. That's what is called as, the mind map. Processing image. So he has created, see, he is creating the image also for us. We'll need
सर आपका ये पेड वर्जन है क्या ChatGPT का?
नहीं, फ्री है.
Okay.
अच्छा, this might take time बोल रहा है कुछ ये.
I think for you it's taking time, but I got that result.
Who is this? Let me stop the sharing. Yes. Can you share?
Vishakha.
Yeah, Vishaka, please share.
Just a
Let's see it
sec.
there. We want to understand that tool. That's more important than doing it ourselves. Yes, something is appearing there. See, project management mind map, initiation, these things are there. Planning is there. And then see, there are double bullet points as well. Planning में scope planning, under scope planning, WBS and deliverable. Under the time management, time estimate, Gantt chart and so on. So he has created, something here. So that's called as mind map. Mind map is one of the, style of doing the things there. Requirement capture could be done like that. So for example, the safety requirement, the look and feel requirement, cost optimization requirement. Under the cost optimization, such and such things. So that's how you can create. Okay. So let me come back. So I will share back my screen, Vishaka. Is that okay?
Yes.
So there I go, and now I start taking it ahead. ये मेरा image बन ही रहा है, but forget about it. Now we don't need it. So there I was saying that that is called as a mind map. Interpersonal and team skills are very commonly required while capturing the required. You need to talk to so many people. Some of them talk too much, some of them never talk, some of them are very senior. So unless you have a proper interpersonal and team skills, the requirement capture may not happen properly. One of the common thing there is a nominal group technique, which is and then observations and conversations. This is under interpersonal skill observation. It's an ability to do observation and conversations. Remember, conversations, your ability to talk with them. But sometimes there are observations as well. You need to observe their behavior. Some things they may not tell you very clearly vocally, but you need to observe it, saying that how much importance he is giving for that. Then comes facilitation, and requirement capture workshops are sometimes called as JAD, which means Joint Application Development, sometimes called as Quality Function Deployment. These are different names. Sometimes they call it the requirement hothouse. This is one of the name which is used. Sometimes they call it as a requirement war rooms. So multiple names are there, but basically, it is sitting together and creating, facilitating, and capturing the requirement. Sometimes, there is a 2 or 3 days long, workshop, requirement workshop. Have you participated ever? तो वो 3 दिन में पूरा करके खत्म करना है आपको. Correct? Did you? All the participants are called in that room, and the discussions are done, marathon discussions for 2 days, and all the requirements are frozen there itself. Correct? Yes. Now
Brainstorming kind of.
brainstorming, but इसमें Vishaka, what happens is that it's a long thing, sometimes done offsite as well, Vishaka.
That is
All
Yeah,
the
yeah.
part
people
of
who are
safe
giving
framework, right, Sanjay?
uh,
For any more than 1 month of planning is happening, so that's where it actually happens.
exactly. So all the people who are representing the user, all the people who are technical thing, who are the solution architect, they are sitting there for 2 days of marathon meeting.
Yeah.
All the requirements are done. See, one of the problem in requirement capture is that sometimes requirement are given by customer, business analyst takes it, he goes back to the developers, developer, no, 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 it's not possible. Then he go back to the customer and say, this is not possible, what do you want? Now if you are having a requirement workshop type of thing, all the people are there only, so immediately if he is doubtful, saying that it is possible, he will say, wait, let me call Kuldeep and ask the Kuldeep there itself, हाँ ये बनेगा कि नहीं बनेगा. So rather than things going through back and forth, you go ahead and sort it together. That's the advantage of such a thing, Vishaka. Those workshops are meant for that. Correct?
Correct.
Now these context diagram, in IT guys, they use a word called as UML, Unified Modeling Language. It's not a development language or scripting language. It is a methodology of thinking. What they say is that if there is some system in between, they go ahead and write all the users, and they call it as actors. Who are the actors for that system? And then they will say what is the input that actor will give to the system and what he will expect out of the system, what it will take it back from there. So those type of representations are called as context diagram. In IT guys they call it as UML. If you want, let's say, in simple things, if you want, again, we'll take example of a washing machine. So team in Samsung is designing the washing machine. So that they will go ahead and context diagram they will say who are the users. Users are the buyer who is going to buy that particular washing machine. Then the homemaker, the lady who is homemaker. Then there would be
सर अब वो लेडी का कॉन्सेप्ट नहीं रह गया, अभी सब करते हैं
हाँ सब करते करें.
काम
वो
वाली.
थोड़ा हम हमारे जमाने में है अभी तक कुल भी.
Yeah, sir, now the vocabulary has changed.
And that's where I don't say housewife, I call it as homemaker. So homemaker is a gender neutral, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Then
It's
maid. And then here is the service stations
सर
तो
मेड के लिए भी
सर्विस
फैंसी वर्ड आया है, डोमेस्टिक हेल्प।
हाँ डोमेस्टिक हेल्प करेक्ट हाँ
मेड के
हाँ
लिए फैंसी वर्ड है अभी एक।
करेक्ट सो सर्विस स्टाफ जो सर्विसिंग करने वाला है then there would be one more actor here he is called as the dealer so एक washing machine का डिजाइन में these are all the actors correct now remember buyer will have his own expectations it will be related to the cost वगैरह वो related expectation रहेगा what he will expect the homemaker or who is going to use that particular thing would have certain expectation कि at least 8 kg ले लेना चाहिए in once if I start it and then it should go ahead and complete it all those things this lady would have her own expectations from the thing service staff will say that कि if it is getting down quickly I should be able to reach that particular drum and replace it पूरा मशीन खोलने का जरूरत नहीं रहना चाहिए डीलर विल हैज हिज ओन ways now these people these are called as actors so put the actors and say what are they going to give to the system what they are going to take these type of diagrams are called as context diagrams so context diagram IT guys call it as UML has someone used that UML diagram
Yes, yes.
actors and actions वाला
Yeah.
किया है
Yeah.
तुमने
There are multiple diagrams, but I mean like use case diagrams, sequence diagrams,
Yeah,
all those
use
comes
case.
under UML.
and a larger thing called as a
Yeah.
context diagram correct
Yeah.
prototypes I don't think need an explanation it's a small miniature thing which is actually going to give a good feel of how it is going to look finally so prototypes then comes requirement documentation which is output so list of all the requirements there um, then comes you they should be unambiguous measurable testable traceable वो है ना कुछ smart requirement have you heard this word वो
Yes.
क्या है सो स्पेसिफिक मेजरेबल
Specific-
अचीवेबल
Hmm.
आर स्टैंड्स फॉर
I
क्या
think realistic, I believe.
हाँ ऐसा कुछ है एंड
ऐसा
टी
कुछ
इज
है हाँ
टेस्टिंग
टेस्टिंग
stable so basically that's the way it should be very clear about it these are all the type of requirements there and requirement document is then used. This is RTM. I spoke about RTM at length, saying that this is one of the sample format. As I told you, so many things wherever you are giving requirement to one particular team and multiple team are going to work, and finally output is going to come after some duration. There, such a matrix is required. If this matrix is missing, it is quite possible something which was told by one of the representative of one of the user may not appear into the final solution and might result into a big non-compliance. Your payments might get stuck up because of that. So RTM is one of the way, if it is implemented properly, could be done. No one will be doing it in using Excel spreadsheet. In my opinion, there are tools which allow you to do this. So that's what is requirement traceability metrics. कुलदीप आपका क्वेश्चन क्या था इस पे?
सर यही था,
यही
मैंने
था ना?
कभी तक देखा नहीं था अपनी आंखों से, अभी आपने दिखा दिया ये।
ये
नहीं,
टाइप
मुझे
का है ये।
पढ़ने पे तो आया था सर, ये ट्रेसेबिलिटी ऐसे हम लोग ट्रैक करते हैं, इसमें ट्रेस करते हैं कि
हम्म
वो कहाँ तक पहुंचा है, कितना अचीव हुआ है,
करेक्ट
लेकिन वो दिखने में ऐसा दिखता है, ये मैंने अभी देखा है।
हाँ इनफैक्ट
बट
ये
इसका
किसी न किसी फॉर्मेट में सब जगह रहना ही
हाँ
चाहिए
रहता है और इसका कोई
हाँ हाँ, ऑफ
स्टैंडर्ड
कोर्स ऑफ
फॉर्मेट
कोर्स
नहीं
ऑफ
है
कोर्स।
हाँ
हम्म,
नहीं
क्योंकि
नहीं,
मैंने
ऐसा हाँ,
सॉरी
वो
गो अहेड
वो अपनी अकॉर्डिंग टेलर किया जा सकता है,
हाँ
डिपेंडिंग ऑन
एग्जैक्टली
द।
एग्जैक्टली क्योंकि
एग्जैक्ट
मैंने मल्टीपल
हाँ
कंपनीज पे
बराबर।
इसमें काम किया है एंड बोथ आई मीन ऑलवेज कुछ कुछ चेंजेस रहते ही हैं उसमें इट्स नॉट
एग्जैक्टली
स्टैंडर्ड बट हाँ एक बेसिक थिंग्स शुड बी देयर
एग्जैक्टली वो आई मीन इफ यू लुक एट इट वेरी फनी थिंग व्हेन यू आर गिविंग ऑर्डर टू द वेटर 15 टेबल रहते हैं ना आप लोग के टेबल पे आके जाता है देन ही गोज इनटू 4 नेक्स्ट टेबल्स करेक्ट शिष्यन
यस
एंड
यस
आपके इसमें से कोई तो बोलता है उसमें थोड़ा तीखा कम डालना और दूसरे टेबल पे जाता है कि मशरूम मत डालना आप आर यू रियलाइजिंग रिक्वायरमेंट ट्रेसिबिलिटी मैट्रिक्स की जरूरत है आर यू
एग्जैक्टली
गेटिंग बिकॉज दिस गाय इज गोइंग टू पुट इट इनटू दैट टैब वो छोटा टैब में रहता है आजकल तो हाथ से भी नहीं लिखते दोज पीपल डोंट गो टू द किचन एंड टेल दैम
राइट
आर यू रियलाइजिंग हाउ शुड दैट बी गोइंग देयर इफ दैट डजंट रीच देयर तो पक्का शिशिर तेरे डिश में मशरूम आएगा एंड दैट्स
एग्जैक्टली
गुड इनफ फॉर यू टू शाउट करेक्ट
एग्जैक्टली
so RTMs are required wherever these type of things are there RTMs are absolutely required then
Uh,
comes defining the scope
Sanjay, one thing nowadays in Agile, you don't find these RTMs anymore, right? So,
correct and now why is that Pawan
We
Why
are
it is
already
that?
maintaining backlog planning sessions on the.
One thing is time gap between requirement and delivery is very small, Pawan.
Okay, yeah,
Correct? It is
right,
in
right.
3 weeks. If it is a 3 months, then your chances that you might miss something. That is one reason. But that's not the main reason, Pawan. You know the main reason? Main reason is that product owner is supposed to be attending daily scrum meeting. Are you getting this, Pawan?
True. Yes.
Does that reduce need for the requirement traceability matrix? Why?
Yes. Yes. Makes
It
sense.
is
Yeah.
almost like, Pawan, you are not only telling that you don't want mushroom, you are actually going to that kitchen when he is cooking it. Obviously, if he even he picks up the mushroom, he will say that, Ki, boss, you don't want to put it, correct? Product owner will bring it to your notice there itself. It's not going to be at the sprint end, he is going to go. And that's where these type of things are becoming less relevant in Agile. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
And that's why it is less in documentation and always in
Less
Scrum. Yeah.
documentation, exactly. So, then comes define scope. Define scope may I always, give a very funny formula. I say that scope is equal to requirements, obviously. I say plus x minus y. Okay, plus x minus y. Now, what is minus y is that which are the requirements which are not going to
Not
fit into
needed.
the timeline, technically not possible. Multiple reasons could be there, or they are not sitting into the priority. They are, technically possible, vagara, but priority mein nahi hai. So there are some requirements which will be dropped and that will go ahead and define the scope there. Correct, friends?
Could have items.
Correct. Could have items. Now, what happens about plus X is that there are some requirements which the end user, the people who are going to consume that product, are not able to even visualize. But you, being the technical expert, you know this need to be done. Very
Functional
often,
requirement.
we call it as, yeah, what is that?
Functional requirements.
In fact, no, other way. Kuldeep, they are called as non-functional
Non-functional
requirements.
requirements.
Have you heard this word?
Yes.
Yes.
Mostly we
Functional
call them as
requirement, Kuldeep, they
NFR.
will. Huh?
NFR.
NFR.
हाँ NFR नॉन फंक्शनल रिक्वायर्ड विशाखा है ना बेसिकली he is a bank guy he is a bank guy he doesn't understand that if 5,000 user log in currently the system will crash
Yeah.
that is Vishakha your responsibility to guess and write say that the system should take 5,000 वाला वो system आपको वैसा design it is your responsibility correct Vishakha
Correct.
Correct.
that is called a non-functional requirement which are there and they are all over the industry every industry will have the non-functional requirement, which are not necessarily the end user should be able to tell you. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that's what he is trying to say there. So define scope and that's where scope is. So it's a converting the requirement into detailed description of product. Not all the requirements are covered there. Few requirements are not stated by stakeholder, which are non-functional are also included. Charter has, very broad level requirements. They are at a very broad level. So they are not really detailed. After collect requirement, more details are available to make a scope statement, after the requirement. Obviously, more details are, available where you can make it. Available scope in case of iterative life cycle, which means Pawan, as you are saying, agile it is done for the next iteration so one at a time so for you don't go ahead and freeze the scope for sprint backlog for 1 2 3 you do it only one at a time and that's how it happens typically the detailed scope of the next iteration is done at the closure of the prior iteration inputs are well known all those things we know pretty well for doing this you need expertise the technical guys are coming into the picture here. They need to do a lot of data analysis, for example, alternative analysis. To reach this particular thing, should you go ahead and develop something yourself? Should you go ahead and outsource it? Should you go ahead and integrate some product? Those multiple ways. Say requirement is what customer said, I want it this way. Now, how do you do it, is up to you. So multiple ways to deliver them. Those alternatives. Decision making, which requirements to be taken based on criteria. As I told you, number of users, the cost involved, the time taken, multiple things, weightages are given, and based on that, these requirements will be taken into the scope. These will be parked there. Interpersonal team skills are very commonly required. Product analysis is very common, thing used in all the thing. Product analysis, if you go ahead and ask, a guy who is, making the washing machine, he said, washing machine, na, सबका एक ही रहता है ना. He said, यार, Samsung का इतना अच्छा अलग लगता है, IF भी अलग लगता है. How do you say? See, he said that, see, whenever there is a washing machine, there is a control panel, there is a drum, then there is a motor. See, for him, every washing machine is like that. If you call an automobile engineer, he said, car, sab car ऐसे ये same ही रहते हो. So what do you mean? There is a body, there is a engine, there is a gearbox. ये सब common रहेगा. They have a hierarchy for the product. Everyone has his own hierarchy of the product. They go by that. That is called as product analysis. If you ask a caterer, he said, हाँ, सब party एक ही रहती sir. So what do you mean? There is a welcome drink, there is a main course, there is a dessert, all that. That's a product analysis. Basically, they are having a hierarchy of something. It's called as a product breakdown, requirement analysis. So these are also, used there. Output project scope statement. Remember earlier when you were there here, when you were doing collect requirement, you created requirement documentation and requirement traceability matrix. And now in define scope, you are coming up with the project scope statement. So that's the difference. So project scope statement is what is getting created. Remember, when you are doing it, put what is included, what is excluded very clearly. Mention what is excluded. Don't try to go with an assumption saying that I have included this, so everything else is excluded. Write, those things so that there are no ambiguities around them. Sometimes, customer conveniently think that you will do even this. So, mentioning very clearly what is excluded is always a good practice. Scope is very clearly mentioned, the deliverables required, So you need to write that as well. Then comes creating the WBS. Maybe what's the time? We'll finish these two processes and then we'll take the break, I think. That's okay, na? Friends? So you have
Sure.
taken a small break. Okay.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
So the break to break the overall scope into the smaller component called as a work packages. So if this is the whole scope of the project, you need to go ahead. So here is my scope of the project. I am going to break it into multiple work packages. Work package 1, work package 2, work package 3, and then I will assign it to one team member, this to one team member, and so on. That is called as create WBS there, So work packages could be managed independently, which means it could be assigned to an individual, it could be tracked, it could be completed and accepted separately. Once all the work packages are completed, the whole scope is delivered. That's how you should go about it. WBS is a hierarchical representation. Top of that is project scope. Now, remember, this is at a multiple levels. Now, this is at multiple levels. So, for example, if I go ahead and take, the example here, let's say, we'll take what example? Chalo. Party, के लिए cooking. Now, WBS for this would be, one level will be welcome drinks. Welcome drinks. This is one. The second one is called as the main course. The third one will have the sweets, and fourth one will have desserts, let's say. Under the main course, you might have the rotis, you might have the vegetables, and you might have side dishes. Under the roti, you might have tandoor, you might have naan. Remember, this whole hierarchy is called as WBS. Is this clear so far?
Yes.
Now, there is a method. What they do, remember, this is not a brilliant example, because in real life, this could be done also for your project. In your project, you might go ahead and say that, so let's do it for our project here. So let's say e-commerce website. E-commerce website. Is that a project? Developing a e-commerce website?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So here, there is a user login functionality. There is something called as a catalog functionality. Then there is something called as a order functionality. Then there is a functionality called as tracking, customer tracking there. So these are the functionalities. Under the catalog functionality, there would be a functionality related to, you know, categorize the thing. For example, kitchenware, the garden tools and whatnot is there. Then there is something called as filter functionality. Then something called as comparison. These are all the functionalities coming under the catalog module. Now in the filter functionality, you might have certain programs here. They call this as number one because this is top one, 1.0. This they call it as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. This one they will call it as 1.2.1, 1.2.2, 1.2.3. This they will call it as 1.2.2.1, 1.2.2.2, and so on. This numbering is what they are giving. Understood so far?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
This last part here is the only thing which is a deliverable, friends. Now, this tracking wala, maybe it has only one more level here. Now, this last part here is called as work package. It's a work package. Clear? Remember, user login is not a work package. Uske niche mein there would be something. That is called as work package. User login is just the logical grouping of sub work packages. Is that making sense, friends? Yes, is that making a sense? Interim levels here, these
तो
are
सर आप ये
only
कह रहे
for
हैं कि जो लास्ट में रहेगा वो एक्चुअल काम रहेगा जो करना
वो
है
एक्चुअल काम रहेगा, करेक्ट. बट ये बीच वाले क्यों हैं? व्हाई आर दे देयर?
सर दे आर
व्हाट?
मेयरली फॉर ग्रुपिंग एंड मेकिंग इट मोर अरेंज्ड
एंड रिपोर्टिंग डाउन द लाइन. कुलदीप,
रिपोर्टिंग
रिपोर्टिंग में क्या होता है? टिपिकली दे गिव दीज नंबर्स व्हिच आर गिवन ना, 1.2.3 जो है, this number is mapped with in account something called as a GL. Anyone knows here GL? है ना कोई फाइनेंस वाला? नहीं?
General ledger.
Correct. So Vishakha, general ledger. In general ledger, for every expenditure, every item, there is a code. Correct? That account code is debit or credit होता है ना वो. Correct?
Correct.
Now what they do, each of these items are marked to a general ledger code. So that if someone actually goes on this work package, if he has traveled from Pune to Kolkata, he will make a travel expense report, and that travel expense he will put this code. This will automatically get mapped to that, so that it will come onto this, so that it will come to this, and so as it will be marked to this project. Automatically it happens. That's why it is called as code of account identifier. These numbers are called as code of account identifier. Lowest one, as I told you, is the work package. In between these things are called as planning package. They are called as planning package. The last one are work package. These are planning package. कुलदीप समझ रहे हो? प्लानिंग पैकेज, वर्क पैकेज. आपने बोला था अभी, जो काम करना है वो सबसे नीचे है. करेक्ट? डिलीवरेबल. यस कुलदीप?
हाँ सर बराबर है ठीक है
तो उसको वर्क पैकेज बोलते हैं. और बीच वाला क्या है? वो प्लानिंग पैकेज है. इट इज ओनली फॉर प्लानिंग पर्पस. दे आर नॉट कंप्लीटेड सेपरेटली. वंस ऑल द वर्क पैकेजेस बिलो दैट गेट कंप्लीटेड, दैट आइटम इज मार्क्ड एज कंप्लीटेड. करेक्ट?
सर अभी आपने एक वर्ड और बताया था कंट्रोल समथिंग
कंट्रोल अकाउंट. दीज नंबर्स आर कॉल्ड एज कंट्रोल अकाउंट्स.
कुछ लंबा सा नाम बताया चार चार वर्ड का कुछ तो था सर
वो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज
Code
कोड
of
ऑफ
account.
अकाउंट आइडेंटिफायर. कोड ऑफ
कोड ऑफ
अकाउंट आइडेंटिफायर. ओके, वो भी मेरे ख्याल से एक स्लाइड में है. हियर आई वाज ट्राइंग टू एक्सप्लेन यू दिस कंसेप्ट बिफोर वी हिट इनटू दैट स्लाइड.
ठीक है
दिस
सर
इज हाउ इट इज डन देयर. इनका चार्ट है उसमें, सो लेट्स नॉट वरी अबाउट इट. WBS is there and so on. These are inputs well known to us. There is nothing to explain. Expert judgment, obviously, breaking the scope into WBS, you need expertise in terms of, you should be a guy who is a developer, maybe, or who is a technical architect. Then he will be able to do it. not Tom, Dick, and Harry. Even if it is a painting related thing, if you ask me to do, WBS for painting work, I may not be able to. उसके लिए painter लगेगा who knows what are all the steps which are required. Decomposition, as you have seen, that whole tree broken down into the below thing is called as decomposition. So that is called as decomposition. Now look at it here. What I explained will start making sense. Decomposition is a technically used for dividing and subdividing the project scope and project deliverable into the smaller, more manageable parts. It helps to distribute the work to the team, which can work on estimating, planning, and delivering them independently. Abhi wo chart will, tell you what is this. Steps to decompose to work package include: number one, identify and analyze the deliverable and related work there. Structure and organize the WBS. Decomposition of upper WBS level into the lower level in detail components. So what are the interim level? What are the final levels? Develop and assign the identification code. As I told you, code of account identifier. Give the codes to the WBS component and verify that the degree of decomposition of deliverable is appropriate. This is an important, concept which we need to understand. Don't decompose too much. Don't decompose it too less. See, you know, work package level pe you should go ahead and stop. Below that team which is going to work onto that, they will break it. Don't break it to the activity. If you look at the larger picture there, you will realize that you are here in create WBS. You break something to a work package. And once this work package is done, breaking that into the activity that person will do, that developer will do it. Stop it at work package. So where do we stop? At the work package is what he is trying to say in this point. It says that you should decompose under the lowest level, then verify that it is at an appropriate. Don't go much deeper in terms of decomposition, and don't keep it at a very shallow level as well. First level of WBS could be the phases itself. Some project managers, what do they do? They go ahead and make the WBS with the first level as a requirement capture, design, development, testing. Under the development, they will go ahead and set the user login functionality and so on and so forth. So one of the ways, use that phases of the project is the first of the thing. Sometimes they could take major delivery. As I told you, for a car, they will say that for the car, WBS is engine, chassis, body, gearbox, and break it. So that's how. So there are multiple. It doesn't matter which way you actually start. In Agile also, this is done using Epic, getting broken down into user story. Yes, Pawan, you know these two words? I guess you should be. Epic.
Yeah, in Jira.
So what is Epic?
It's a high level user story. Sorry,
Yeah.
high level feature where you can
Which
actually
is then
define the
broken
scope.
down into user story.
Correct.
Correct. So that's what is called as Epic. Epic is a bigger thing which is there, and there are multiple stories. All those stories, put together, complete Epic. So that's the decomposition. Correct, Pawan? Decomposition in Agile happens like that.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we are saying. So
Even I
work
break
package,
down user stories into tasks.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then comes work package could be delivered in distant future or not broken to the decomposition. They said कि अभी next 2 महीने में whatever you are going to do decomposition for them. Other work packages, let it come closer and then do it there. So it's always wise to do so. This is called as a rolling way of planning or progressive elaboration. That is there in all the things. They say that don't try to unnecessarily go ahead and try to break your head in planning at detail level for something which is going to happen in distance. It will result into rework and it will unnecessarily, increase your cost as well. Yeah, same. I have explained it to you. WBS is a tree. For the team member, it will help him to understand what is their work package. It will help them to estimate the efforts. So that these are the work packages. See, final leaves of this tree. These are the leaves. These are the branches, and this is the root. So root to the branch to the leaf. The leaf is a work package. So the sponsor or customer, it will help you to understand what is overall expected, because in one go you get to know. And the numbers are given, code of account identifier, as I was telling you. Now, friends, because we are the typical software guys, if you draw this, you would have a tendency to double click this, isn't it? Yeah, every box you would like to Double click, correct? What do you expect to see if you double click this?
It will navigate to the respective
Yes, Pawan. Respective what?
respective pages, maybe.
More details about that, correct?
Yes.
Some more details about it. That particular thing is called as WBS dictionary, Pawan. It's called as WBS dictionary, which means on this work package, if you click, who is going to work onto that? What are the dependencies? Are there any quality requirement? Is it expected that this should be done on this date? Any specific thing about that work package? See, WBS Pawan is good for you to tell, saying that where does this fit into overall picture, correct? But what is to be done in detail for that, you would always have a tendency to check that, and that is called as WBS dictionary, correct?
So you mean to say like the 1.1.2, I mean requirements change identification.
Ah.
This is the one is called as an WBS dictionary or
No, this is called, this whole tree is WBS. This is called as work
Work
package.
package.
okay.
This is work package, Pawan, correct?
Okay.
This whole tree is WBS. Now, double clicking this, after that, what will open is called as WBS dictionary,
Got it. Got it.
correct? Now, if you look at it here, I think, अच्छा, आज मैंने I didn't open the pin box, so let me do that. And this output we'll see. They have very clearly shown, what is. Now control F, we are in create WBS. So 5.3 point output 3.1. Yes, create WBS output. Expert judgment, decomposition. These are tools and technique. Yeah. Then scope baseline, work package, WBS dictionary. See this power. It said that in WBS dictionary, code of account identifier, description of the work, assumptions and constraint, responsible organization, scheduling milestone, associated schedule, resources required, cost estimate, quality, all that. So basically a detailed thing of each work package, which that developer, this WBS as a thing, Pawan was good enough to understand that where do I sit? It said that I am going to work on this. This is part of this is part of this, and this is part of the project. But I will go ahead and check in detail what do I want to do using that WBS dictionary. These details, in fact, is how this is related. Output is called as scope baseline. And Kuldeep, here was your question. Scope baseline itself has 5 something. One is called as project scope statement, which was output of define scope. WBS, that whole tree. Work packages, which are the list of it. Planning packages, those interim levels, which are for the summary and all that thing, and WBS dictionary. These 5 things put together is called a scope baseline. And this scope baseline itself is a part of our larger formula called as PP is equal to 9 plus 1 plus 3 plus n. Here,
Yes,
3
yes.
may say one of them is my scope baseline. And all updates. Then comes validate scope, basically acceptance by the customer. So validate scope takes care of, acceptance by the appropriate stakeholder, which could be the customer in most of the situation. But if it is an internal project, it could be a sponsor, it could be some representative or whatever. So that's where they are using a word called as appropriate stakeholder rather than the customer. It is not testing done by project team, because for testing done by the project team, you have this thing called as control quality. This validate scope is acceptance by the customer. Process will convert the verified deliverables into accepted deliverables. We spoke about it several times. Your team accepted it is called as verified deliverable. Customer acceptance is called as accepted. Completion of this process will then start the closing of the project. That's where I was calling this as a 48th process. With the thing, At 49 are the total process. So 40th is this. After this, you start closing. Inputs are well known. Remember, verified deliverables are an input, which means your team has accepted it. All the monitoring and control process will always use the work performance data, is actuals. They do the inspection, which means they go ahead and check the deliverables in line with what was the specification. Remember here, if you look at it here, there are specifications which are written here. And as per that specification, they are going to do the inspection. Then inspections,
सर वो स्पेसिफिकेशन एक बार फिर से
which one?
अभी आपने स्पेसिफिकेशन का कुछ बताया
हाँ. Now here, a collect requirement में most of the situation customer would go ahead and tell you, say that what all he wants. ये time है here, you are going to check against that, correct?
सर वो रिक्वायरमेंट वो आरटीएम में नहीं होगा क्या वो अलग अलग से रहेगा
हाँ, RTM is all for your tracking, isn't it? This is a customer's thing,
अच्छा
correct? So when in the evening Kuldeep went to the workshop and he was trying to check कि वो tires वगैरह change किया क्या, तो that is validated scope. And in collect requirement in the morning you said that कि वो थोड़ा आगे वाला पीछे वो सब कर दो tires. Now that was your requirement. Now what happens, Kuldeep, is that the workshop team will use it using RTM. At this point on time, if you go ahead and say कि अरे ये दिख तो नहीं रहे आपने नहीं किया, तो they will again open the RTM to check कि कहाँ मिस हो गया, correct?
मतलब
Yes,
कि
right.
सर वो स्पेसिफिकेशन कस्टमर के लिए वो अलग से बना के रखेंगे क्या और आरटीएम पैरेलल में चलेगा ऐसा बोल रहे हो आप
हाँ, I mean collect requirement he has only given it to you, so he will have his
अच्छा
own
ठीक
copy
है
or he might use your copy, and then
ओके
against that he will check ना.
ठीक है ठीक है ठीक
That's what he will check it. आपका तो आप you have lived the whole thing,
अच्छा
step
सर
by
उसके लिए
step.
कुछ नाम भी है क्या जैसे आरटीएम एक नाम है तो ये
हाँ,
स्पेसिफिकेशन चेकलिस्ट करके कुछ ऐसा कुछ नाम रहता है क्या
ऐसा तो कुछ दिया नहीं, इन्होंने तो दिया नहीं है कुछ. सो यू माइट कॉल इट एज ही विल यूज रिक्वायरमेंट डॉक्यूमेंटेशन एज अ थिंग. सो अगर आपको ये देखना है तो हाउ कैन वी सी दैट? वी विल गो अहेड एंड सी द इनपुट फॉर वैलिडेट स्कोप, करेक्ट? नाउ
हाँ
इनपुट फॉर वैलिडेट स्कोप इज 5.3 के जगह वी नीड टू से 5.4.1.1 which is validate scope, correct? If this is, I think, create WS है क्या 4? एक minute, let's see. I think it is 5.5.
0.4.
5.5 is varied scope. Okay. So varied scope ka input is what Kuldeep is asking. 5.5.1.1. So let's see this. This will be the inputs for validated scope. So usme, what I was trying to say, specification Kuldeep, he should say project plan. See, requirement management plan, these are plans. Project document mein quality reports, requirement documentation. Did you notice this?
हम्म
RTM में देखा तू? These are
हाँ
the
अलग से
inputs.
ठीक है रिक्वायरमेंट
He's saying input as a thing. So under a larger thing called as project document, they have given it. So it will be there always.
हाँ ठीक है सर वो रिक्वायर
Correct. So decision making obviously is sometimes required if it is not going as per the plan. And output is called as accepted deliverable. And sometimes change request. This change request I just hate. Why?
सर उसको पसंद नहीं आया कस्टमर को वैलिडेट्स को फेल हो गया तो फिर वो
और वैलिडेट स्कोप में का चेंज रिक्वेस्ट, ये
हाँ
बहुत गंदा है. चेंज रिक्वेस्ट सब जगह बनते हैं. इट्स नॉट बैड थिंग फ्रेंड्स. आर यू गेटिंग दिस स्वाति, पवन? इन वैलिडेट स्कोप चेंज रिक्वेस्ट इज बैड थिंग, आई एम सेइंग.
लेकिन होता भी रहेगा ना कहीं तो वो उसको
हाँ,
पसंद नहीं आया
हाँ,
ऑब्वियसली
होता
इसलिए
है.
तो दिखाया उसने.
हम्म.
व्हाई सो बैड?
क्योंकि वो उसमें रिवर्क बढ़ जाएगा सर पूरा लास्ट में जाके कस्टमर फेसिंग
लास्ट
है
में है ना, ये लास्ट में आया है. सो यू आर इट शोज अ बिग फेल्यूर ऑन योर पार्ट, करेक्ट? करेक्ट, पवन, you got this? Raj?
Yes.
So very serious thing, isn't it? That's what I say. But yes, as Kuldeep is saying, yes, it does happen. If it is happening because he forgot to give that requirement, Raj, then you are not worried. Correct? You would have said, sir, aapne hi bola nahi, now what can I do? Correct? But if that happens because of your lapse, then you are in trouble. Correct? Okay. Then comes control scope, the last process. Objective of this process is to monitor and control the scope. As I told you, tracking planned versus actual. The thing. Changes are inevitable. Don't hate change. Changes are going to be there in the life or in the project. It is inevitable. However, the control is very important. Uncontrolled changes are risky. And that's what they are trying to say. So they are mandatory. Changes made in the project without proper process and approval are called as scope creep. So change is not a problem. Scope creep is a problem, which means changes happened in that subtle way. I use that word subtle way is there. Scope creep results in elevated cost, time, and overall project control. Do you agree to that last statement?
सर एक चीज नहीं आ रहा है समझ में, ये वैलिडेट स्कोप करने के बाद कंट्रोल स्कोप आ रहा है, ये
हाँ,
थोड़ा सा
इसका
वो क्या है?
सीक्वेंस अलग लग रहा है ना, ये
हाँ
अजीब चीज है ये. सो सी फ्रेंड्स, व्हाट ही इज ट्राइंग टू से आफ्टर वैलिडेट स्कोप, दिस इज वेरी फनी. ये नंबरिंग ऐसा क्यों दिया मालूम नहीं. आई वुड हैव ऑलवेज लव्ड टू टेक कंट्रोल स्कोप फर्स्ट एंड वैलिडेट लेटर, बट ये इन द प्रोसेस दे हैव गिवन दिस सीक्वेंस. वेरी फनी इंडेड, but no other reason. So you are right, that should have been before that. Okay. So scope creep, do you agree to this statement? It results in elevated cost, time, and overall project control. Scope creep.
Yes.
It's bad. Project manage, these are inputs, all work performance. This is a standard control process. Takes the plan versus actual. So work performance data is actual, project plan is planned. So planned versus actual, analyze it. Maintain the tracker of the delivery and check what was the planned scope and what is there. You might do variance analysis. What is the planned delivered? What are the actual delivered? Trend analysis. How are the trends happening? So those things, that type of analysis. It is all control processes will have the same format there. An output called as work performance information and sometimes change request, which means something has gone wrong. Either there have been some creep, there would have been some, or something missing. You so whole of the deliverable is ready, but we have also agreed for the documentation, which is not yet ready. So that could be one of the change request. These are all the updates. So that takes care of this important chapter called as the scope, which is what we have just now concluded. What we must do is solving some questions for that, but I have noticed that the answers of the question quite often tend to be more correct if you are energized with the coffee. What do you say, Raj?
Absolutely correct.
Coffee tends to give the right answers, so we'll do that as well, and then take this journey ahead from there. I will stop this recording. We will take a 20 minutes of the break.